I am who I am because I value my past. The memories of yesterday can never be changed, but they give me a reason to live again. There is a reason I am here today, but there is no reason you lost your lives. You were called abusive names, deprived of rights to be humans, slayed because of who you were born. I am lighting a candle as the sign of resilience. I'm paying a tribute. You left a legacy, and I'm a fruit from the love you sowed. Let's say never again to genocide. There should be no war. There should be no genocide. Anyway, let's say never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. I was young, I still needed you, but you were taken away from me too soon. If I had one wish, be seeing you again. Today we're strong men and women, even though you are not here to see. We're carrying on to make you feel proud out there, watching down on us. I am lighting a candle as the sign of resilience. I'm paying a tribute. You left a legacy, and I'm a fruit from the love you sowed. Let's say never again to genocide. There should be no war. There should be no genocide. Anyway, let's say never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. I am a witness that if you and I come together as one, we can make sure genocide never happens again. History should be told and passed on to further generations. Let's all stand up and all sing out, never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. There should be no war. There should be no genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. Let's say never again to genocide. We are here as one nation. We say never again. We unite as human race. you flowers. We brought 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 you
Good evening, fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to this very important broadcast this day, Saturday. I think today marks the last day of the 5th month of this year, 2025, and it's been a remarkable journey as the people of the southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, continue to pave their way into freedom. It's been remarkable in many different phases. The achievements or accomplishments by the government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia has been tremendous. But that's not all. Lots of things have happened this week, and the responsibility of this program is to look into the details of some of the things. We come in to x-ray them, to debate them, and to educate our people, home and abroad, on our stance. Now, about 10 years ago, we will be plagued into a senseless war. I call it a senseless war because some historians had predicted it. In the early 80s, the American ambassador to Cameroon warned Biya, or warned the Cameroon government, that the way you're going about it today will definitely be sure. But is Cameroon listening to advice? One would think that after decades of struggle with the people they have now opted to call Anglophones, they would have learned a lesson to know these are not people who can give up. Every generation comes with its own vigor, comes with its own leadership that is willing to ensure that at least the identity of these people that they plan to destroy will not be destroyed. So the war Biya declared on the 30th of November 2017 was not just a way to retaliate because of what he claimed had happened to a couple of gendarmes who were brutalizing, raping, and killing women in Ambazonia. It was part of the annihilation plan. And the plan was to intimidate and to impose on the people to accept the Franco-Cameroon hegemony that had been in motion for over 6 decades. Now it failed. They thought that since 1961 they had disarmed the people, and these people were so weak that they would shout at them, slap them, hit them with their bullets, and they would stop fighting. But it failed. Biya's government is yet not humble enough to accept the fact that it is a war they cannot win. Now, by this time, we know they have known by this time that they are unable to win the war, but they are unwilling to stop. And many are asking the questions why. As a consequence of this war, the economy of the two Cameroon has been badly affected. Many more people have gone unemployed. In fact, unemployment rate in the both Cameroon has drastically increased. Got to an escalating form. Now they're pretending that they want to fight corruption. And many those who had civil servant and matrical numbers that traveled abroad have all lost their jobs. They were just looking for an opportunity to create some vacancy because they are unable to pay even salaries. Now the CDC, as we know, is the second highest employer in the Cameroons put together. And CDC is largely in Ambazonia. We know economic sabotage has made the income that is coming in from CDC low. In 2014, after a very long time, when they had destroyed the coffee and cocoa in southern Cameroon, in 2014, it was reported that Cameroon had regained the fourth place in cocoa exportation. Because as of that time, farming and agriculture in southern Cameroon had greatly improved. It was just a few years after the Enugu Highway, the road that was constructed by the World Bank, had just been constructed. So lots of youth in Santa, in Kumba, in many different parts, because of the road that Cameroon would not allow to be constructed for 4 decades had been constructed. Economy was booming. There was heavy business going on between traders and farmers, especially with Nigeria. That's a huge, it's the biggest market in Africa. Cameroon started, first of all, by creating policies to block the trade between Cameroon, or between the people in Bamenda, most especially in Kumba and Nigeria. And the Buhari government at the time adhered to it and blocked businesses there. That still didn't work. It still wouldn't work because they wanted to impose everyone to go to Douala. It wouldn't work. What actually helped in crumbling the economy, even after Cameroon had taken the fourth place, we know in a country where more people are being employed through agriculture, either directly or indirectly, that is the kind of report you want to hear. As we speak, the World Bank report is showing that many more people will be starved before the end of the year 2025 in the Cameroons. Though Cameroon is trying to manipulate and lie and give statistics that do not match the economy, we can prove it. You have many more Cameroonians are fleeing to any kind of country, to Dubai, to Kuwait, even countries where they are being oppressed more than Cameroon. Cameroonians are ready to leave. At least 2 million Saudi Cameroonians are not in Cameroon because of the war. Now, the UNHCR is fraudulently not giving statistics of what is in Nigeria accurately, but our counting, because we have communication with these displaced people in Nigeria, is at least 300,000 Saudi Cameroonians in all the different settlements in Nigeria that are struggling to have a life. So what we're saying is Cameroon, the two Cameroons put together, is a nation moving towards indefinite destruction if the war does not stop now. One would think that a leadership that is interested in the well-being of the people will consider the need to look for frameworks or facilitative measures that can end the war. And what are some of those ways to end the war? Dialogue, negotiations, partnering with others. History has it that no war has ever ended through intimidation. And the most prominent was the war between the United States of America and Afghanistan. And you hear Donald Trump saying that America left as a ridicule. And that's the fact. Because after spending trillions of dollars, they were unable to defeat the indigenous people of Afghanistan. So Cameroon knows, and knows very well, that they cannot win the war in Ambazonia. And if you're doubting what I'm about to say, let's hear what the former president that was handpicked by Nelson Mandela as a loyalist and of his vision, a custodian of Nelson Mandela's vision. That's Thabo Mbeki. Let's hear what he had to say. And this information has shocked a lot of people, not just in Amazonia, but all across Africa. Let's hear him.
Challenges in Cameroon that have been going on now for some time, including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war. So we've been trying to talk to President Biya about this thing, to say as the African Forum, that's a former heads of state of Africa, to talk to President Biya to say we are ready to assist you, to work with you to solve this conflict. And we haven't gone very far because he's not been very keen to be assisted to address these challenges. So I then talked to, as the Africa Forum were doing this thing, I talked to the Commission of the African Union to say to them, but colleagues, what are you doing about this conflict in Cameroon? So one of the commissioners then tells me that we discussed the matter as a commission and decided that one of us should visit Cameroon to engage the president and everybody to see that what can we do as a union.
So we're going to get into the details of that when we're doing the debate. I just wanted you to get snippets of it. That there's a lot you can pull from there. So this is the same Biya and his cohorts in Yaoundé who wants the world to believe that the people of Southern Cameroons that have proven to be available in every dialogue. I'm talking about those who have called enablers. He has even called a grand national dialogue that has been a failure. And the people of Southern Cameroons, you had some enablers were there. We know of the Canada debacle. But the big one on stage is the Swiss negotiations that Biya boycotted after pretending for over 2 years that they were interested. So it is enough for everyone to see that Biya and his friends are not willing to end the war. They don't want to end the war. So my question is, why? Why is Biya not interested to end the war? The war that is crumbling his economy, the war that is making his own people he claims to love suffer more, the same war that has the propensity to bring down the entire sub-African region. This conflict between the two Cameroons, if not carefully managed, can crumble the economy in Nigeria. That's why Nigeria is concerned. It can crumble the economy of the entire CIMAC. In fact, the instability of peace in the sub-African region, if Amazonia is continually being undermined as a major stakeholder in that region, and war powers are keen. So the right question to be asking is, why is Biya not interested to end the war? We're going to be answering that question with the lawyers when we're done with the flash news, and now we have, interestingly, we'll be having Star Smart. We'll also be having Tabitha to give us some analysis of what is happening on the ground. And right after that, we'll be back. Stay tuned.
Well, in today's global briefings, business, politics, and international diplomacy collide in ways that could redefine old alliances and long-standing policies. From Donald Trump's unexpected pivot on foreign steel investment to new legal rulings that put the brakes on sweeping administrative purges, we see the former United States and the current United States president continuing to draw both scrutiny and support as President Trump sets his sights on 2025. Meanwhile, Elon Musk pushes back against controversial reporting on his alleged drug use during advisory periods under Trump, raising questions about media credibility and political spin. While overseas diplomatic tensions remain high, Hamas has rejected the latest United States-backed ceasefire proposal, dimming hopes for immediate progress in Gaza. And in the United Kingdom, the symbolism of royal pageantry has stirred renewed debate about the nation's colonial legacy, particularly amongst indigenous voices in the former Commonwealth states. Now, how do moments like these shape public opinion, policymaking, and leadership in an increasingly polarized world? Well, more importantly, who stands to gain or lose as these headlines evolve into long-term consequences? Good evening and welcome. Well, we see Trump steal his gambit. Well, in a dramatic policy shift, President Donald Trump announced a substantial increase in tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, doubling them from 25% to 50% effective June 4th, 2025. The move unveiled during a rally at a United States steel plant in Pennsylvania aims to bolster domestic metal industries, reduce reliance on foreign steel, particularly from China, and revitalize American manufacturing. Simultaneously, Trump celebrated a $14 billion investment by Japan's Nippon Steel into United States Steel, framing it as a partnership that would preserve American control over the company. He assured workers there would be no layoffs and promised a $5,000 bonus for each United States Steel employee. However, this announcement marks a stark reversal from Trump's earlier stance. During his campaign, he vehemently opposed foreign acquisition of iconic American companies, pledging to block Nippon Steel's takeover of the United States Steel. Well, now he portrays the deal as a strategic alliance that aligns with national interest. We wonder if this is a pragmatic adaptation to global economic realities, or if this is a political maneuver to consolidate support amongst industrial workers. Well, critics, as always, including the United States Steel Workers Union, have expressed concerns about the national security implications and the deal's potential to undercut the domestic steel industry. They argue that foreign investment, even from allies, could compromise critical supply chains and labor standards. Supporters, of course, contend that the influx of capital and commitment to American operations could rejuvenate the struggling steel sector, as well as Nippon Steel pledging substantial investments, including $2.2 billion in Pennsylvania and $7 billion across other states, with assurances that the United States steel operations, including American leadership and monitoring, will continue domestically. Now, can foreign investments be harmonized with national interests, or does it inherently pose a threat to domestic autonomy? Well, this development only raises questions about the efficacy of protectionist policies. While tariffs aim to shield domestic industries, they can lead to higher costs for consumers and potential retaliation from trade partners. The long-term impact on the economy remains uncertain, and we wonder if these measures would turn out to be sustainable strategies for economic growth for the United States, or would it turn out to be short-term fixes with unintended consequences. But at least we know what the status quo of the tariffs is right now. Well, for Elon Musk, he has responded to a New York Times report alleging his frequent ketamine use during his advisory role in the Trump administration. The report claimed that Musk's drug use was so extensive that it affected his bladder. Now, when questioned about these allegations, Musk dismissed them, questioning the credibility of the publication by referencing its past reporting on the Russian investigation. He stated, "Is New York Times the same publication that got a Pulitzer Prize for false reporting on the Russian gate?" Well, he did that rhetorical question to show that they are not a credible source to report about him and to point out that this is another allegation that is false. Well, in an era where personal conduct is under intense scrutiny, how do public figures navigate allegations that challenge their very integrity? Well, Musk's response only highlights the tension between media accountability and personal privacy. By deflecting the question and attacking the publication's credibility, he avoids directly addressing the allegations, seeing it as worthless. And also this tactic raises questions about transparency and responsibility amongst influential figures. But then, does deflecting criticism by attacking the messenger undermine public trust, or is it a valid defense against perceived bias from biased media outlets? Well, the situation only underscores the complex relationship between media outlets and high-profile individuals. Now, while investigative journalism plays a crucial role in holding power to account, it can also be perceived as invasive and biased. How can the media balance the public's right to know with respect for individual privacy is a question that keeps lurking. As the discourse continues, the public is certainly left to navigate these narratives and discern the truth amidst conflicting accounts. In the court of public opinion, who bears the burden of proof, the accuser or the accused? Well, we still see Trump's federal workforce overhaul halted in a significant legal development. The United States Federal Appeals Court has upheld a lower court injunction blocking President Donald Trump's ambitious plan to reorganize the federal government. The Ninth United States Circuit Court of Appeals, in a 2-1 decision, ruled that such sweeping changes require congressional authorization, thereby halting the administration's efforts to implement mass layoffs and agency restructures through executive action. The proposed overhaul, spearheaded by the newly established Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, under the leadership of Elon Musk, aimed to downsize approximately 20 federal agencies, and critics argue that this move threatens essential services, including food safety, inspections, and veterans' healthcare. But then the question lies if the pursuit of efficiency justifies the potential erosion of critical public services, if it does at all. But labor unions, municipalities, and advocacy groups challenge the executive order, asserting that only Congress holds the authority to restructure federal agencies. The court's decision reinforces the principle of separation of powers, emphasizing that significant governmental changes must undergo legislative scrutiny. Now, is this ruling a reaffirmation of democratic checks and balances, or is it an impediment to necessary governmental reform? We can only say that the Trump administration criticized the decision as judicial overreach and plans to appeal to the Supreme Court. And in the balance between swift executive action and legislative oversight, where should the line be drawn? Away from the United States politics, we head over to Gaza, where we see efforts to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas reaching an impasse. With Hamas rejecting the latest United States-backed proposal, the plan accepted by Israel included a 60-day ceasefire and the exchange of hostages and prisoners. However, Hamas criticized the proposal for failing to meet key demands, such as a permanent ceasefire and full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. While contemporary measures suffice in a conflict that demands lasting solutions such as this, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate. The United Nations has warned that the entire population is at risk of famine, with aid deliveries hindered by bureaucratic and military obstacles. Recent Israeli airstrikes have exacerbated the crisis, resulting in civilian casualties and further displacement. Now, how can the international community address the immediate humanitarian needs while navigating complex political dynamics is the question that lingers. Internal disagreements within the Israeli government have also surfaced. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's insistence on maintaining control over strategic locations like the Philadelphia corridor has been identified as a major obstacle for Hamas to reach an agreement. Well, is political intransigence prolonging human suffering, or is this a necessary process for a future and permanent peace? Well, as the stalemate persists, the prospects for peace remains uncertain, and the international community only faces the challenge of facilitating negotiations that address both security concerns and humanitarian imperatives. In the quest for peace, we wonder if common ground can be found amidst deep-seated divisions. Well, on to the United Kingdom, we see the royal visit and the United Kingdom's reckoning with a colonial history. King Charles III's recent visit to Canada, marked by ceremonial grandeur and traditional regalia, has reignited discussions about the United Kingdom's colonial past and its present-day implications. For many indigenous communities, the spectacle of the royal visit, complete with protocol, thrones, and mounties in pith helmet, evoked a model of national identity that clashes with ongoing efforts to confront Canada's own violent history of colonization and dispossession. Now, this event underscores a broader struggle within the United Kingdom and its former colonies, how to reconcile a storied imperial history with contemporary values of equality and justice. While some view the monarchy and its traditions as symbol of national pride, others see them as reminders of a colonial past that inflicted deep and lasting harm. In the United Kingdom, public opinion on the British Empire is deeply divided. A 2025 YouGov survey revealed that only 33% of Britons view the empire as something to be proud of, while 21% see it as a source of shame. Notably, younger generations are increasingly critical, with 35% of 18 to 24-year-olds expressing shame about the empire, and a significant increase from 26% in 2019. Education plays a pivotal role in shaping these perceptions and point of views. While 79% of Britons agree that the empire should be taught in schools, there is debate over the approach. A majority, 78%, advocate for a balanced view presenting both positive and negative aspects. However, among the youngest adults, 22% believe teaching should focus mainly on the negative aspects to correct historically rosy views of imperialism. The United Kingdom's approach to addressing its colonial legacy has also been scrutinized internationally during the 2024 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Discussion around slavery reparations were notably absent from the official agenda, despite calls from leaders like former Jamaican Prime Minister P.J. Patterson. The United Kingdom government maintained its stance against financial reparations, though King Charles acknowledged the ongoing pain caused by colonial histories in his speech. Domestically, there is a growing movement advocating for reparative justice. A 2024 survey found that 6 in 10 Britons believe that the government's royal family or companies that profited from slavery should issue formal apologies to descendants of enslaved people. Additionally, 40% support financial reparations directed towards long-term community projects. Yet, the path to reconciliation is fraught with challenges. Critics argue that symbolic gestures like royal visits are insufficient without substantive action. The return of statues honoring colonial figures and the lack of progress on treaty obligations with indigenous communities highlights the complexities of addressing historical injustices. We wonder, with all of this, can a nation truly move forward without fully confronting, addressing the shadows of its past? And does confronting the shadows of the past have to mean punishing the innocent of the present? Well, the future of nations like Canada will give that answer in detail. And so, from shifting global alliances to the undercurrents of domestic power struggles, today's headlines have painted a world in motion, contested, reshaped, and reimagined as nations wrestle with identity, policy, and legacy. One can't help but ask, are we witnessing the dawn of a new global order, or just another turn in the cycle of history? Maybe both. Well, that's a wrap for today's Flash News. As always, I am Star Smart, and we'll take it over to our news director.
Thank you, Star Smart, for that awesome report. Well, taking it over to news from the home front. Tonight, a recent decision by La République du Cameroon's Ministry of Secondary Education to reschedule its national exams is drawing criticism as the new date directly clashes with long-standing ghost town mandate in Ambazonia. While intended to accommodate a religious holiday, the modification is seen by many as placing students in the war zones at severe and unfair risks. While tonight, a communique issued by the Colonial Minister of Secondary Education, Nalova Yonga, confirmed the postponement of several major examinations, including the GCE exams, initially slated for Friday, June 6, 2025. And these exams have been officially shifted to Monday, June 9, 2025, which is a ghost town day. Now, the ministry claims the change aims to allow Muslim students, teachers, and invigilators to observe the Tabaski Eid al-Adha feast without academic interference. However, this decision has met criticism over its potentially dangerous implication for students in the war zones of southern Cameroons. For years, Mondays in these areas have been enforced as ghost town days by Ambazonian leaders, criticized by cessation of transport and severe restrictions on movement. Now, participating in this crucial examination would require students to defy ghost town directives, exposing them to significant security risks. Conversely, adhering to the ghost town leaves them with no option but to miss their exams, effectively jeopardizing their academic future due to a calendar conflict created by colonial central authorities. Now, despite the well-documented challenges of movement and security on Mondays in Ambazonia, the ministry has not offered specific provisions or alternative arrangement for affected candidates. So sad. Meanwhile, critics argue that a more proactive, comprehensive, and sensitive approach to calendar planning be considered urgently. Well, this report points back to the recurrent issues we get to face in La Republic du Cameroon. Meanwhile, tonight with me in the studio is our in-house analyst, the phenomenal legal practitioners, Barrister John Fru and Barrister Team Mbeseha. Your amazing work is a direct reflection of your dedication and commitment to the struggle in Ambazonia. Good evening, sirs, and thank you for joining.
Good evening, Tabitha. Thank you very much for inviting us to your program again once more.
Thank you very much. Addressing the gross and negligence of La. It's no longer news to know that La Republique du Cameroon's government do not care about the people. Do you see this to be a deliberate act to keep these students prone to the war dangers, or a subtle way to downplay the effectiveness of the Monday ghost town, which is recognized all over Ambazonia? For years, it's been adhered to, it's been observed. What do you have to say about this?
It's a question to me, Tabitha. I'll take it. Listen, it is an affront to the government of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia, and second, to the population and the people of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia, especially the school children. You cannot put an examination on a day that is considered for over 8 years now as a lockdown day in La Republique, in the Southern Cameroons. And you move the exams around because of, Muslim holiday, which we don't oppose. But why Monday? Why on Monday? When you know what Monday, La Republique du Cameroon knows that Monday is a lockdown day and people of the Southern Cameroons are at war. Why would the lady, Naluva Lionga, who is an English-speaking person herself and knows the situation, the war situation in the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia, put the examination date on that same day? If it is not to sabotage our children and also an affront to the Southern Cameroon government and its people, then what is it? We are calling on La Republique du Cameroon to push those exams to Tuesday, rather than let the children get into arm's way on a Monday just because they have to write the examination. That is all I have to say about that. It's terrible.
Much, Barrister Fru. Well, as you've just stated, this is in a bid to sabotage the students' future, most probably. But then let's get to Barrister Mbeseha. Thank you for joining us tonight. Barrister Mbeseha, do you think otherwise? These students are now left to halt between two opinions, either to defer the exams or defy the Monday ghost town, which could sadly expose them to security risks.
My take is this: it is not a neglect, it is not a mistake. It's a deliberate attempt to do what they want to do. It's part of a larger program of return to normalcy. And so that's what the minister is trying to do. But again, we have to look back to see who is the minister. We are now having lockdowns because there's war. The individual person called the minister, I've said it many times before, was and is still at the origin of this struggle. Why were the students demonstrating in 2016? Essentially, the teachers were involved, a reform of the education system. What did Nanuva do? She was the head of the highest educational institute in Southern Cameroon at the time, the University of Boya. She invited the police and the soldiers to come and rape her own students. Do you expect anything better from her? Certainly not. And so she is an accomplice. She's being used, and she has always been used, to try to destroy whatever complaint we're giving about. Why did she do that? Because according to her, sitting in Boya as director of the University of Boya, there was nothing wrong with the education system. Everything was perfect, according to her. So whoever went against it deserved to be tortured, deserve to be raped. And so you must look at it in this context. They already know it's not Naluba alone. The government of Republic of Cameroon, anywhere in Ambassador, knows that Monday is ghost town. They don't even open their own offices. They don't open them. Even if they open them, they don't punish those people who don't come to work on Mondays. So they're already aware of ghost town. But if they must put the examination date on the ghost town day to challenge us, one, to pretend to the world that there's a return to normalcy, they would do it. Are they doing it to help the students? Certainly not. Are they doing it to help anybody? No, they are doing it to promote their own agenda. The question you ask me is, what should the students do in the face of all this? We have already put it out there as a policy, as far as education is concerned. If you feel that you are safe, because there are consequences of violating ghost town. If you feel that you are safe, if your parents feel that you are safe, go write the exam. We cannot produce you not going there. Go there. And so our policy remains same. Danger, danger if you violate ghost town. But if you must take the risk, it is for you to do it, not for us to tell you not to do. And so, again, the Department of Education, the Ministry of Education, and in general, and Naluba in particular, are not going to help us. They will do everything to frustrate our own efforts. They will do everything to frustrate what we stand for. They will do everything to show to the world that there's a return to normalcy. And so that's the issue, that's the bigger agenda. Not help from Naluba, who in the first place is responsible for the problem, no help from Naluba, who acts as an agent of the Republic of Cameroon as a minister. What she is doing is not different from what Atangaji would do. It's not different from what Dion Gute would do. All so-called Anglophone accomplices would do the same thing, to destroy what we stand for, to pretend to the world that we are terrorists. If a child were wounded going to write the exam, they would say, why are the terrorists have wounded the child? They would pretend and would try to forget that their own soldiers have shot students going to school. They have killed students cold-blooded in Garubu, and so on and so forth. So again, let the people understand what is happening. Let them understand our policy. If you think are safe, if your parents think that is safe, go do it. But if it means risking your life for the sake of writing a single paper, good enough, the GC is a single paper exam. If you don't go there on Monday, you don't fail the whole exam because you didn't go on Monday. If you still pass 9 papers, because all the papers are not written on Monday. So that's my personal advice. That's my contribution. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Barrister Mbeseha. I think by that statement, the student will be able to make a decision out of it. Well, moving on, we have this important report from the Ambazonian State Army. The Ambazonian State Army carried out a successful ambush on the La Republique du Cameroon military in Fako County on May 29th, showcasing their tactical prowess and commitment to the independence struggle. Now, according to this report, the Ambazonian State Army operatives laid a well-planned ambush, catching the Colonial military column off guard. Now, the attack resulted in significant damage to the Colonial military's personnel and equipment. This latest operation, as we keep saying, demonstrates the Ambazonian State Army's continued ability to outmaneuver and outsmart the La Republique du Cameroon's military. Now, the Ambazonian State Army's success in this ambush is a testament to their strategic planning, training, and dedication to the Ambazonian cause. The Ambazonian State Army's actions are driven by their commitment to achieving independence for Ambazonia. Well, this is a just cause. However, their operations aim to disrupt the La Republique du Cameroon's military's control and assert their own authority in the zone. Now, the successful ambush shows the ongoing security challenges in Ambazonia. The La Republique du Cameroon government faces a determined and well-organized adversary in Ambazonia, now which will likely continue to challenge the colonial military's capabilities. And this draws us to the fact that Ambazonia must be free. And this is not time for the people to remain silent. Well, tonight, Barrister Mbeseha, let's have you again. Within the week, we had reports on the increasing insecurity situations in Ambazonia, categorically in Bamenda. Now, right here is another case in Fako, but this time, the Ambazonian State Army have showcased a relentless applause of bravery like we usually see all the time. Now, what's your reaction to this, and what cautious word do you have to say to the Ambazonian people in the face of this conflict?
The attack is so significant. Let us forget about what's happened in Bamenda the past weeks or months. The attack on the 29th of May, somewhere in Fako, is absolutely important. Why? Because the colonial government has built a visit of the Prime Minister to Fako in particular, and Southwest in general, starting 27th of May to 31st. So 29th falls within that period of time when the Prime Minister is in Mboya. What is the Prime Minister in Mboya trying to do? By their own agenda, the Prime Minister is in Mboya to preach a reconstruction, which reconstruction signals a return to normalcy. With this Prime Minister's visit to showcase reconstruction, to showcase return to normalcy, where does it stand in the face of this attack? Not anywhere else but in Fako, where Boya is based. Not anywhere else but Fako, where all the military forces are based, starting with their B being trained in Manowobe, starting with every village, every corner there, staffed with the military, a large police school in Motengene, a large military camp in Ombe, a large military camp in Marfo, about 5 camps in Boya itself. So it is telling enough evidence to tell the world that what the government has been saying in general and what they are trying to do now in particular, 27th to 31st of May, is a sham thing. It's pretentiousness. And so it fails, it shows their own failure. Because when the Prime Minister comes, in addition to what they have, all those military bases there, they are well armed, positioned to clap. We saw people dancing there in the streets of Chico, clapping for Mr. Undaunted. Again, this is Fako. Fako is part of the Southwest. Mr. Undaunted, who is visiting as the Prime Minister, not as Undaunted, is from the Southwest. So the story is telling, it is enough evidence to challenge their own narrative. Their narrative has failed. There's no return to normalcy. There's no reconstruction going on. The war is ongoing. And then it only goes to add to what has happened elsewhere before, in Bamenda, in Bui, and any other county that we have records of. And so that's what I take from it, is a sure explanation of their own failure. The on the seats have fallen plain on plain air to show that they are lying to themselves, they are lying to the world. Over to you.
Barrister Mbeseha. Before we get to some of those facts, and I believe Barrister Fru would have a lot to say even about the first report, but then Barrister Fru, it's always a delight to get your reactions. Last week we had the honor of hosting Commander Willie on the show, and he presented an elaborated defense analysis and how effective the operations of the Ambazonian State Army has been. Now, this report also shows that at every stance, they implement goal-driven strategies to protect the people while staying brave as the war rages on. Let's get your expressions on this.
Yes, Tabitha, before I react, let me take you back just one or two sentences of the topic about the school, about the examinations on the Monday. We as a government of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia are calling on the GCE board, which is based in Boya, to ensure that there are no exams on Monday for other children to miss. Because if some parents think that it is safe and some think that it is not safe, it is not to our interest for any of our children to not to write an exam. Therefore, I'm calling on the GCE board to reconsider and push the subjects that were supposed to have taken place on Monday to Tuesday. It's just 24 hours away. Now, coming back to reaction, Tabitha, I want to congratulate the Ambazonian State Army in Faku for one reason. The way the journey of the Prime Minister John Gote was planned in Yaoundé and in Boya and other places, it was done in secrecy. It was done in secrecy, and they sent tons and tons of troops to tantalize our citizens. A lot of our citizens were arrested in what they call Kale Kale, in a corner, in my 16, in some parts of Muyuka, arrested and taken away before the 29th. And nobody knows when they will be released, or whether they are being released now, I would not know. But the intelligence got to the ASA of Fako very late, but they acted. They immediately organized themselves and went on an ambush. And that shows exactly what Commander Willie was talking about. The ASA is alert and ready 24/7. Anytime they get intelligence, they will act. The question that comes to my mind is, when John Gote and his so-called team, because they were there and dancing in Boya and Tico and all that, when they got the news of that incident, which was not very far from there, from Munyenge, when they got the news of the explosion of the military truck, whether it was a military truck or military whatever, and the number of casualties from on the military side, on that same day of 29, when John Gote was dancing in Boya, what will be the reaction of one, the government of La République du Cameroon, and two, the international community that is watching? They were trying to show that, preaching that the reconstruction, normalcy is arriving, is back to the southern zone, and all that. But they were disproved by a military operation not very far from where they were preaching that rubbish. What do you think the world will think? That the war is on. The war is on. Therefore, I take this opportunity to congratulate our forces in Fako for a job well done. They sent the message, and the message was received not only by La République du Cameroon, but the world, that the war is on and raging. They may select some a place in Boya and Tico that they think is safe, but they heard the news of the attack. They can only deceive themselves. They are not deceiving the world. Thank you very much.
Fact right there, Barrister Fru. Well, thank you for joining us on the show tonight, Barrister Fru and Barrister Mbeseha. It's always a pleasure to have you share your thoughts and perspectives to the unfolding reports in Ambazonia and the reports we get from the home front. However, it's good to have you once more, and as always, I would like to have you again and again and again. But then, this is where we'll be handing it over to Mr. Tarh. Stay tuned.
Amazing one day, Tabitha. It's great. Thank you for that exclusive briefing. It was quite brief this afternoon with the lawyers there. Just before we plunge into our conversation this evening, we're going to talk on the BBC fraud again. I understand Barrister Mbeseha and myself tackled it a little bit on Monday, but we'll have enough time to go through every phase of it. We'll begin by really trying to find out. We know why, but we rhetorically would like to let the world understand what is happening, the truth about the war in Amazonia, who are the masterminds of this war, the manipulation that is sponsored by the Cameroon military, and all of that. So if you look at what's happening with those in Fako right there, right now, if you look at what is happening in them, if they could ambush a military tanker and neutralize in Bamenda and everywhere, and you, a father in Southern Cameroons, you're sending your child to go and write an exam on a day that has been announced as a lockdown, what you're doing is suicide. And you have nobody to blame. If you're thinking that you're going to help Cameroon to accuse separatists, you would have been in the grave. So it's not wise. Here's the fact that is known by the world. On the ground, precisely in the southern Cameroons, what they call the north and the southwest, there are two authorities. You have the colonial authority, that means Biya's government and his government administrators, his military in the southern Cameroon, which is considered by the people of southern Cameroons, and that can be justified by international law as an illegal, as an intruder in the southern Cameroons. And then you have the legitimate that has been oppressed through the sponsorship of France, is on exile as an authority. Whether or not you are loyal to either of these authorities, the fact be told is that these authorities do exist in southern Cameroons. So what then is the deal? If you're in the southern Cameroons right now and you do not have the means to flee, you have one option: to employ the neutrality policy. Stay neutral. You must not talk. You must not take a side, either by your words or your actions. At any time, you do what is instructed. Listen, when there's a lockdown, like Commander Willie said last week, let those who have arms go out. If you're going out, you're putting yourself in harm's way. You're making yourself a military target. You're saying, because the Ambazonia State Army is out there with guns, real weapons. Whether you like it or not, they are there. And Biya, to make sure he gains ascendancy and impose the Franco-Cameroon hegemony and the invasion in the land, they're also there. There is war, whether you like it or not. So if you choose to go out, what you're saying is that I have what it takes to defend myself. Because from the side of La République du Cameroon, and I know they have already planned, we have intelligence, that the reason why they strategically made it that way is so that they're going to kill you and then blame it on the Ambazonian fighters. Their whole idea is to paint this effort of the people of southern Cameroons to gain justice as a terrorist movement. And you're going to be used as the guinea pig of that failed experiment. Be wise. Stay at home. Don't go out. In fact, the GCE board in Boya will be obliged to reschedule if nobody attends. They will have to do it. Well, the government has a policy. I want to amplify it. The lawyers have just said it. The policy is, if you the parent of the child, so that you are not blaming the government for stopping your children from going to school. If you think it's safe for you, send your child. But if you know it's not, and then you will be accountable for it, don't come and emotionally blackmail anybody, because you had a choice. But you choose the one that shows that you're provoking the people of the southern Cameroons. Now, if you go out to write the exam on the day that those enablers at the GCE board have made, what you are saying is that you are in line with Biya to continue the oppression in Ambazonia. And what does that mean? Those who have picked up weapons on the side of Ambazonia, They have taken the responsibility to pledge their lives to defend you. They will try to enforce it. They will try to tell Biya, listen, you do not have authority here. And you might just meet a bullet. Not even the Geneva Convention will criticize them, because law, the interpretation and application is there. If you are there as a civilian, on a day, you will be shot down. And the defense, let me tell you what the defense will be. The defense is that maybe you were an informant of La République du Cameroon. That's the defense. Because the truth is, La République du Cameroon sends civilians that will go out to attack the Ambazonian army. So the Ambazonian army, once you are a suspect or a target, the same thing the Cameroon army is doing. There's a video I'm going to show you shortly. Moja targeting civilians. Cameroon army threatens civilians, kills them, imprisons them as a strategy of war. When they realize that you could be an Ambazonian fighter or an informant of an Ambazonian fighter, they kill you. Because if they don't kill you and you are an Ambazonian fighter or an informant of an Ambazonian fighter, you're going to have them killed. Let me inform you, the Ambazonian State Army, if they find you at a place where it's going to jeopardize their security, they will kill you. So be wise. It is not Tarh King. I'm not any of their commanders. In fact, I don't know what is happening. I'm just reporting it. And I'm advising you. They will kill you if you defy the lockdown. Not because I ordered them to do so, but because it's the right thing to do. The right thing for them to do so that they are protected. If you are placed in their position, some of you are so selfish, you cannot pick up weapons to protect somebody. Nobody is forcing you to pick up weapons. But we're saying that protect at least your life by staying at home. When you feel it is safe, go out. If somebody comes into your home and shoots you, that will make sense. Now the world can criticize that person for entering a house and killing a civilian. But that a civilian chooses to go out when they have been notified that there will be bullets crossing in the air, forget you. Even in heaven, God will blame you. You will be slapped by the angels for coming ahead of time. Jesus already paid the price, so you don't have to go and sacrifice your life. Be wise. So we're going to take this video as a break. We'll be back with our analysis in a jiffy.
It is high time for France to lift its knee off our neck and put an end to this unjust oppression. Centuries of misery, human trafficking, colonization, and neocolonization have caused immeasurable suffering. It's time to put an end to this cycle of oppression. It's high time for France to leave us alone. It's time for France to take a cue from its European neighbors and learn a valuable lesson in independence. Germany is the leading economic power in Europe, significantly surpassing France, which is ranked as the third or fourth largest economic power globally. Germany does not exploit any country, any colony. I can mention Italy, I can mention Spain, who had colonies before, but who do not exploit anyone, who do not interfere, who do not impose leaders in their former colonies. On what grounds does France believe it can continue to impose leaders on us and make choices on our behalf? This must come to an end. And the emerging Africa, the African youth, the African elites, and the African diaspora all stand united in saying no, it cannot continue any longer. France's hypocrisy is evident and pervasive in daily life. Let's examine the cases of Mali and Chad as prime examples of this hypocrisy. In Chad, where the constitutional process has been interrupted, France applauded and its president visited to officially consecrate the new king's coronation ceremony. In Mali, where it is not the constitutional process that has been interrupted, but the transition process, France has condemned and even packed up its things to say that it is leaving Mali. That's hypocrisy. It's the double standard. It is the double language that France employs in its dealings with Africa. During our questioning of Mr. Jean-Yves Le Drian, regarding the situation in Ivory Coast and France's decision to allow a third term, he provided a clear explanation. He stated that while he accepted the third term for Ouattara, he refuses it for Belarus. He emphasized that France has condemned the situation in Belarus and has actively encouraged the European Union to do the same. Le Drian explains that in Belarus, millions protested, unlike Ivory Coast, where there were no mass demonstrations on the streets. This is how France deals with African issues. Personally, we expect absolutely nothing from France. We desire her to cease meddling in our matters so that the people of Senegal can exercise their freedom of choice rather than being influenced by France's selection of a candidate using the tactics we are aware of. We begin by targeting individuals, adorning them with the Legion of Honor or a similar knightly rank, enlisting them in Masonic lodges, and informing them to prepare themselves as they will be next in line. Even the hypothesis that Macky Sall may not succeed, we know who is being prepared by France. This must come to an end. It will not occur in this manner any longer. Let's be clear. We have absolutely nothing against the French people. In France, both political and citizen voices are rising to hold and express the same discourse as the one I am currently presenting to you. For example, the deputies, such as Mrs. Frédérique Dumas, who regularly speaks on the platform of the Assembly, who regularly writes to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, since she is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, to raise this unfair behavior of France towards Africa, hold the same speech as us. The same Mr. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Jean-Paul Lecoq, André Chassaigne, all deputies, hold the same discourse as us, and hundreds of other voices. The NGOs, like other non-profit organizations, are doing remarkable work in the same direction. We strongly urge France to listen to the voices that speak to it about our plan for a more collaborative, fairer, and sustainable partnership between Africa and France. It is crucial that we work together towards a future that is equitable, just, and environmentally conscious. If she listens, I believe we'll have beautiful days ahead in our collaboration together. If he doesn't know how to cut it, thinking he can continue to function like in the time of our grandfathers, this African youth no longer accepts it. France must make preparations for a definitive break and completely withdraw from Africa. Africa belongs to Africans, not France. She belongs to no one else, neither China, nor the United States, nor anyone else.
Good.
Final
Very good.
So, what Cameroon, especially French, La République du Cameroon, has not realized is that this is not a generation that can be intimidated. At least they can manipulate francophones because they train them like that with beer, transport. And they are so dormant, so docile, so dull. Not even the Campo movement has enough good strategy, which is not part of our discussion today. I want us to talk a little bit about this lockdown and Cameroon before we move into the Thabo Mbeki story and conclude with BBC. Let's try to educate the people at the home front that are listening to us now. I'm going to open the phone lines because I want you Ambazonians who are watching us. I'm calling all those who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube. Keep sharing and sharing. I'll open phone lines so that you can bring your contributions to this conversation. Mr. Mbeseha, I want us to talk again about this. We've said it enough, but enough is never enough until we keep telling the people, do not be fooled by Cameroon to place yourself as a guinea pig over a failed experiment. Cameroon is not well trained in war. The war with Ambazonia has proven that it was a failed experiment and they can't win. Now they're trying to tell the world that they will be the first to neutralize an armed conflict or an armed struggle like what Ambazonia has. So they are using you as a guinea pig to tell you to go out, and they are announcing to the world that there is normalcy. They are using your children as spacemen for this experiment. Please, you people have to talk to these children. Maybe this boy's face is too young, and they might yet you fathers to understand that it is a no there. Let me begin with you, Barrister Mbeseha.
Again, if we must talk about lockdown, especially concerning exams, I would contribute, start going back to the GCE board. The GCE board is supposed to be independent, but the supervisory authority of the GCE board is the Ministry of Secondary Education. And I want to emphasize this very well, because I've said here, without mincing words, that the Ministry of Secondary Education, headed by Nalova, is in compensation for her deals, for whatever thing she has done to destroy the generation of Amazonians, the younger ones who are writing the GCA today. Again, who is Nalova? I said here that Nalova was the rector of the University of Buea, and she got the promotion from being rector to the full Minister of Secondary Education. To the best of my knowledge, for its more than 30 years of existence, that's the only rector who ever got promoted from rector, whose rank, I'm told, is supposed to be that of a vice minister to the full minister. And in fact, the only one in the country. I don't remember any rector of the state university who has ever risen to the level of a minister. And so this is to compensate her for what she has done. She has destroyed the youth. People would mention Dorothy Njoma. Dorothy Njoma came to Buea as the vice chancellor of the University of Buea after being the vice minister of education. So it was not a promotion for her to come there. But again, this lady who is doing what she's doing, because she has supervisory authority over the GCA board, is the only one I remember, I can mention, who rose from the level of rector to the full minister of a key ministry of secondary education. And so, again, to show that there's no mercy, again, to show that this is the daughter of the soil, they will urge people, our own children, to take the risk of violating the ghost town, to go write the GCA. If the GCA board is as independent as it is said to be, I will join my colleague, Fru John Nsoh, on calling the GCA board to reason. Even if one child is dead, that is one too much. If one child is wounded because of this, that's one too many. Let them cancel that exam for that day and just share it. And let Naruba realize that we have discovered her own tricks. We have discovered her treachery. And she's not alone. She's not alone. There are many of them. But because she bears that symbol, because she bears that scar of this struggle from day one, by doing what I've already explained, by causing her own children to be raped, by inviting the police to kill them, she deserves to be the forefront of any castigation we do about this thing. Lockdowns are very, very important. We have said it many times before. They are orders, and they have consequences if you don't obey them. But the consequence are though, we don't know what will happen to you. You might lose your teeth, you might lose your hand, you might just lose an eye. I don't know. But there's a risk that you venture into by disobeying the lockdowns. Is it advisable? No. Is it good? No. Are we the ones to decide? No. We've said many times. Your parents will decide for you. But because before being an Ambazonian child, you are first and foremost the child of a family. You have a mother, you have a father, you have a family to which you belong. And so it's left for them to take the decision. Again, lockdowns, ghost towns. In fact, this is not a lockdown, it's a permanent ghost town. That's been described by Cameroon even as country Sunday. It's known worldwide. It's a country Sunday. You don't violate the Sunday. And so that's what it is. It is not a lockdown that is declared on special occasions. This is a permanent lockdown, prepared to in the country fashion as country Sunday. That should be respected by all reasonable Ambazonians. Over to you.
Barrister Fru, please.
Paddy, I agree with your monologue there that if you take the risk and go out there and you are shot, you have no recourse because you have been warned about the danger of you coming out on a country Sunday day, on a ghost town day, for any reason whatsoever. You know the risk involved, and you still came out. I am not a partisan of telling the children for purposes of this examination, because I don't want any child to miss an examination because of this matter. The parents should keep their children at home and don't take the risk of sending anybody out there, because that day, particularly as it is an exam day, the bullets will not be only coming from Ambazonian State Army, but from the Cameroon Army in particular. They will want to kill some children and put it on us. And this government has a duty to ensure that it sends a clear policy of the day of that examination. Don't go out. And if you don't go out, those papers on that day will be scheduled by the GCA board. I don't see how they can conduct an examination in a class where they are supposed to be about 30 to 40 children with 2 or 3 children or 4 children. If you don't go out, that examination would not take place. And Paddy, those enablers that are enabling La République de Cameroon on the 8th year of this conflict, they are the greatest fools that I can think of. If they have La République de Cameroon and its enablers from the southern Cameroon have not gotten what they wanted in 8 years, what makes them think that La République will be able to win us just because enablers are enabling that there's no mercy and La République can shoot and kill us and blame it on us? It's a fallacy. Are there any black leg to come out while he or she is in Bamenda or Boya or anywhere else, come out on a ghost town day and see what will happen to you? You'll be sacrificing for a country that is not yours. La République is not your country. We were asked to join them and they refused that we cannot join them. Because they did not sign any treaty with us, they refused to sign anything. They invaded us on the 30th of September. And that's why we are fighting this war. And if you think that you know better than those who are fighting this war, go out on a ghost town day and try and see what the Ambazonian State Army will do to you, because you are a threat to them. You are an enemy. You are in the enemy's camp. If you dare and go out, the only conclusion we have is that you are with the enemy and you are a legitimate target because we are at war. And there's nothing anybody can do to you. No law, no court will do anything for you. Those enablers who think that they can enable La République, enable La République on days that there's crossfire, and let's see where you get to. You can only play that thing in Douala and Yaoundé, collect money and do whatever you want to do. Go online, go and write rubbish, supporting La République de Cameroon and so on, and make like Dongote. Get the population to cover you. You come to the southern Cameroon, cross the Mongo, and you are dancing in Tiko and Boya. That's all you can do, because before you come, your so-called army occupation has taken over everywhere. And guess what? Because of you, Don Gote, our people were arrested in Muyuka, in Ekona, in Moya, and my 16, and taken to Boya and locked up. where they are asking them to pay 500,000 before they are released. Just because they were preparing for you to come. Why should you be coming if there's no mercy and they are arresting people? Why are they arresting people if there's no mercy? So, Paddy, to make a long story short, the enablers will go nowhere. We have been fighting a war for 8 years. What stops us from arriving 10 years? No matter this conflict, this type of conflict lasts even longer. Because we are a force, a guerrilla war. We are in guerrilla warfare, and we are facing a regular army, well equipped and well financed. Even though they are suffering economic crisis right now because of the war they started. Let them continue. We cannot give up. It's 8 years of conflict. What makes them think that? What makes Bia think that even now that he is unable to speak, he doesn't hear anything, he behaves like a fool, he's being teleguided to go and sit in a grandstand, and yet they are still using him to fight a war. God help them. Thank you, Paddy.
I think this information, I thought that it was necessary for the people in the southern Cameroons to look at it. I know conduct titles, the bandit who was working in London, is trying to look for opportunity to say we are engineering. Now that he's being used, he's one of those that Cameroon is using. The bandit, conduct titles. I know you're watching me, conduct titles.
Yes.
Bandit. You are one of those that Cameroon is giving arms, like Moja, and you're going to the villages, manipulating people, trying to get invitation or information, and you're killing people. I know you're looking for an opportunity to say those living in America are inciting violence. This is not violence. We're inciting prudence. We want them to be smart and wise. The truth about it is that you want to call it violence because you want to tell the world that there's no war. There is war. And a war, there's conflict. And a conflict is between two parties. And we now know that President Biya is unwilling to end the conflict. Let us, before we get into that portion of the discussion, a lot of people have been waiting to hear us because we're going to get into some historical bearings of this. And we're going to explain some things a lot. So before we even get there, let us listen to this statesman again very closely. And I want those who are watching us to also hear, so that it shouldn't be as though we are the one talking. Listen to Thabo Mbeki. And before you watch, let me tell you again who Thabo Mbeki is. Thabo Mbeki, I would say c'est le fils protégé, in French, le fils protégé de Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela actually handpicked him and said, listen, you are the one to continue this legacy. He was not a lawyer. He was a custodian of the dreams of Nelson Mandela while in office. And that's why he's gained the reputation of mediating conflict. So let's listen to him.
What are you doing about this conflict in Cameroon? It challenges in Cameroon that have been going on now for some time, including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war. So we've been trying to talk to President Biya about this thing, to say as the African Forum, that's a former heads of state of Africa, to talk to President Biya to say we are ready to assist you, to work with you to solve this conflict. And we haven't gone very far. Because he's not been very keen to be assisted to address these challenges. So I then talked to, as the Africa Forum were doing this thing, I talked to the Commission of the African Union to say to them, but colleagues, what are you doing about this conflict in Cameroon? So one of the commissioners then tells me that we discussed the matter as a commission and decided that one of us should visit Cameroon, to engage the president and everybody to see that what can we do as a union. And she said to me that, and indeed our colleague went. And I was sitting here in Addis Ababa watching the news. And in the news, it showed my colleague arriving in Yaoundé and walked down a red carpet. And she says, you know, President, when I saw my colleague walking down that red carpet, I knew that the mission had failed. So I say, no, this is a puzzling statement to make. He says, it's because the way they arranged that reception was to drive the notion into the head of my colleague that you are a very important person. So you are received with great grandeur. So in the end, it's the visit itself which becomes the objective, not its outcome. So I knew that my colleague would be so happy that he was received so well, and the red carpet and the champagne, this and that and the other. The mission would die. It's a crude reflection of the death of the Pan-Africanist objective. You can't sit there as a full-time functionary of the African Union and you go there to solve a very serious conflict among the Cameroonian people, but you don't carry it out because all that you do, that happens, that satisfies you, is that I was given all the necessary protocol and the due and so on. So now I'm a big person. It means there's something that has disappeared in terms of our consciousness and so on. But I'm saying that, you see, challenges in Cameroon that have been going on now for some time, including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war. So we've been trying to talk to President Biya about this thing, to say as the African Forum, that's a former heads of state of Africa, to talk to President Biya to say we are ready to assist you, to work with you to solve this conflict. And we haven't gone very far because he's not been very keen to be assisted to address these challenges. So I then talked to, as the Africa Forum were doing this thing, I talked.
So I really wanted us to get it. I even had the first part of it repeated again so that we will get it and understand it. Now let me start with you, Barrister Fru, because you are not with us on Monday. Just give a perspective. What do you think about this?
What do I think is that we have been living with the mistaken impression that the African Union is just sitting on itself. The African heads of states are just ignoring what is happening in southern Cameroon. It is today that we are seeing an African statesman telling us that they have made some efforts, and the problem is Biya. Biya is not listening to anybody. Biya pull out of the Swiss-led process, and after deceiving the Swiss federal government for 2 years, he pulled out and went and organized his jamboree with his friends called the Grand National Dialogue, which yielded no fruit. And then he set up some Ambazonian enablers and took them to Canada. It went up in smoke, and he has since been organizing little groups here and there. The last one has just taken place in Ghana. Biya doesn't want this war to end. He refused to negotiate that he will win with the force of arms, which he's losing. And to make it worse, right now as we speak, Biya is in no position to do anything. It is those who are propping him now and trying to exercise power by using him that are bent on making sure that they continue to exploit the the La Republic government's money to fight a war that they know they cannot win. And that's where we are. This is a good, I mean, I regret that we had been talking that African Union has not done anything. But having said what I've just said now, the African Union is governed by the French, is financed by the French, is financed by the European Union through the French, and therefore the French delegate the African Union. So even if that man went, he took bribe there and came in back. I'm not so sure that if they sent another one, they will not do the same thing, because the African Union is governed mostly by the French, and they will always send a French or some guy who will take bribe. And I'm in my head, Paddy, I've been trying to look at which African heads of state have visited there, ex or present, have visited there during this crisis, during this what they call crisis, during this war.
That's an important question.
And I don't want. Listen, I don't want to call anybody's name, but I have a pretty good idea who they are, who the person is that was given a red carpet treatment and he came back. That is not to say the African Union was serious, because they should have done more than that. If they were not teleguided by the French.
Yeah, I was just about to bring up that point and to give the mic to, I'm happy you brought it up, and to give the mic to Barrister Mbeseha, because the truth is, we know Barrister Mbeseha particularly here has indicted, and I like the way he always explains it, maybe because he has worked in diplomacy in Africa a lot. He has indicted the African Union a couple of times in a way that I love it. So I wouldn't really take the statement of Thabo Mbeki today to think that the African Union would have done a lot, because much is expected of them. And this is actually a committee that you would have this great leader doing the most to initiate conversation. So, do you think, Barrister Mbeseha, that the African Union should be totally right off from this failed situation in Africa? Because I was interviewing the president a few months ago.
By no means.
I was interviewing the president. I'm asking, let Barrister Mbeseha speak. I was interviewing President Sako a few months ago, and President Sako actually said some things that I never forget. He says, when you look at African Union today, is a disgrace. First of all, they are unable to pay their own bills. So they are probably like stooge there. So you see people like Thabo Mbeki cannot, because the African Union can employ, if it is an institution that has any power, they can use other strategies that will make Biya conform. But the reason why probably they will approach Biya and he will despise them and nothing will happen is because they are like toothless bulldogs. So that's where I want you to come in, Barrister Mbeseha.
Well, to properly understand what is going on from the perspective of Thabo Mbeki, we should first of all understand where he's coming from. It looks as if we miss the background, we will miss the whole story. Thabo Mbeki is a retired president of South Africa. He and other former presidents have a forum to which belong. Not active presidents, former presidents. Those former presidents play advisory roles. And he says they sat in that thing and saw what was going on in Cameroon and thought that that Paul Biya needed help because it is going on in this country. And in it says, it looked like Paul Biya did not need help. He was prepared to reject help, quoting him. See, in that advisory capacity, they contacted the African Commission. What are you doing with this problem in Cameroon? Still as advisory body. And the African Commission said, look, we have realized that there's something going on there. We will send somebody there. Not a former president. They will send an active member of the Council of the African Commission to Yaoundé to talk to Paul Biya about it. And did they send somebody? Yes, they sent somebody. That somebody is sent is not Thabo Mbeki. They sent someone else. And Mbeki observed what happened with that guy who went to Yaoundé and came to the conclusion that something was wrong. Again, what do you get out of there? The African Commission sent somebody. That somebody either did not know what he was doing, or he was just bought over. Either did not understand diplomacy at all in these circumstances, or he was bought over. And remember I said last week that Thabo Mbeki came to this position as retired president, but with practical experience as a mediator in conflicts in Africa. You are the chief mediator appointed by the African Union to mediate the Ivorian crisis between Guillaume Soro and Gbagbo in 2005. And as mediator, he lost that position because he was romancing with Gbagbo. The other camp, the camp of Guillaume Soro, simply rejected him. But let us go back to what happened and see whether the African Union did enough or they should do enough. What we've learned, he says that the guy who went to Yaoundé, he doesn't indict him. He says once the guy got to Yaoundé and was walking on a red carpet, he knew that the mission had failed. Why? Because according to Thabo Mbeki, the guy who went there would come back home to report. His interest was to be properly received. Walking on a red carpet is official reception. You go back with the impression that Yaoundé received him like the head of state on a red carpet. That was not his mission to go there as a head of state. His mission was to go there as a mediator. If he went there as a mediator, he did not need a red carpet. He would have, in fact, announced in advance, I'm coming there as a private visitor to talk to the president. I'm not coming on an official visit to be walked through on a red carpet. He did not do that. And Cameroon, that Mbeki has told us earlier, that was not even interested in that negotiation, in that information that they wanted to give as heads of state. He says he was not interested. He only seized on it and killed it with their red carpet. Like they have killed others, I said this before. All of us remember Patricia, Scotland, and others who have gone there. That Yaoundé has diplomatically killed the effort. Deliberately killed the effort. So, if that is the interpretation of what I see, if my interpretation is correct, it means one thing. If the African Union must be involved, and I hope they should be involved, they should learn something from their failed first enterprise. That whoever they send there, in the name of diplomacy, should not go there to be placed on a red carpet. Not only the African Union, we are dealing with this Ambazonian crisis that involves the world. We're asking the United Nations to send somebody there to get involved. If the United Nations will send somebody, they are human beings. Whoever is going to do that mediation, that intervention, should go there not as an official visitor. Should go there, visit there officially, but don't take official receptions. Because when you go to official receptions, they will give you a golden statue. They will place a red carpet for you to walk on it, which will defeat the purpose of the mission. Because that is one of the parties. Remember, they were going to hear one day. We don't know what they would have done if they had talked to Paul Biya correctly. Maybe they would have come to us. But we don't have a red carpet to give to them. The other party, the weaker party in this case. We don't have a red carpet to place for whoever comes to talk to this matter, in this matter. Be it the United Nations, be it the African Union, or any other international organization. We are a party to the struggle. We are a party to the struggle. But we don't enjoy the same diplomatic standing like Paul Biya or like Cameroon, who they will talk through their foreign ministry. They will talk through their ambassadors. We don't have those things. And so whoever is coming to mediate a conflict or to intervene in a conflict like that must be aware of this. And that will take me again back to what Mbeki realized in South Africa, in the case of Cote d'Ivoire. Yes, he could romance with Gbagbo because Gbagbo was a poor boy. He had a government in Abidjan. They could put a red carpet for him. They could give him champagne publicly. They could receive him in the high offices. The Guillaume Soro, who were the rebels, didn't have that capacity. They didn't have that exposure diplomatically. And so, lining up that way, Guillaume Soro and the people realized now he cannot work. And they simply dished him out. And so, that's what it is. The lesson we'll take from this, and the word you take from this is, I've heard, since last week, I've heard people say, oh, Thabo Mbeki did this, said this wrong, he didn't do this. No. We must agree. The practical truth is that for now that we and me are speaking, the world knows that there's a problem. Good number of people in the world are interested to solve that problem. Again, practically, they still believe, as we speak, that we are part of Cameroon. And so, it is for us to make our case. Had the mission succeeded, of the African Union succeeded, that guy was not going to meet Paul Biya and just agree. They would have been able to bring us together. It is at the conference table that will share our mind, that will share our case, that will show that we are not subject to discipline. We will make our case for independence. We will make our case for occupation at the appropriate time. But when these people of this high standing are involved, let us also realize their effort and sing the song here they went wrong. So that if the opportunity arises again, they will not make the same mistake. Just as Nsoh said, the people fought the Swiss-led initiative. Ourselves, we fought the Swiss-led initiative without understanding what it meant. But when we fought it, some of us can say, why? Not because it was a bad thing, but because they didn't understand, and also because they believed that it was brought by the person they did not like. That's just the bottom line. It was brought by the man they did not like. And so, again, we have to let the world know our position. Educate the world, if it is possible, to know where we stand, to know where our position is. The African Union, whoever they send there, either did not even know diplomacy, or was simply bought over. I don't know which is which.
Manipulated upon.
His approach,
Okay.
His approach was wrong. I'm not the one saying it. Thabo Mbeki, a former head of state, in the council, he said they were wrong. That guy was wrong, and he was wrong. Over to you.
So this only comes to confirm what Barrister Fru said there, that the hand of France could have been there, because when you have an organization where you have people being engineered by France, I don't think that those people are not sound enough. I know, Barrister Mbeseha, you're being very polite the way you're putting it, but I don't think they are not aware of not to know enough to know strategy. Because if you listen to Thabo Mbeki, he is saying that when he saw it, he already knew, which means that they knew that if you are sending a person for a mission like that, there are protocols that the person is supposed to be briefed on how to do it. So apparently, France's agent within the organization decided to sabotage a mission so that they will not be held accountable for anything. So these are some of the things we are drawing from this discussion, which I think is important. But the core reason for the conversation this evening is the fact that France and La République du Cameroon, most especially, even though the war is costing them very expensive, they are just unwilling. They are not interested to end the war. What could
That's the
possibly
message.
some of the reasons why they are not interested to end the war? Can you talk to me, Barrister Fru?
Yes, the first one is economic. La République du Cameroon is benefiting. They are standing on their feet now because of the natural resources of the southern Cameroons. They know that they don't have a case. They know that they don't have a good case. They know that they did not respect Resolution 1608 in its paragraph 5. They know that they invaded this territory. And they know that getting on that table, they will lose the southern Cameroons and therefore lose their economic advantage. The reason why La République abolished the federal system was basically because they discovered crude oil in Victoria in Victoria and Indian Division. That is the major reason. Beer has lived on and his wife have lived on that crude oil for decades, and they are not about to lose it. They know that there are some very important minerals in the southern Cameroons that if they lose the southern Cameroons as part of La République du Cameroon, they would never be able to lay their hands on it. They don't like us. They did not vote for they did not vote Resolution 1608 because they didn't want to take us on. At that time, they didn't know what was under. They didn't know how important we were. The French engineered all Francophone African countries except Mali. Mali disobeyed not to vote for Resolution 1608. It's only Mali that voted for Resolution 1608. And because La République du Cameroon did not, and the French did not want us to join them under any kind of a pact, they decided to invade. And after the invasion, 10 years after, they knew what was under the soil of La République of Southern Cameroons. And therefore, La République and France decided that they must take away the federation and absorb or assimilate us into their system so that they can have the opportunity to exploit crude oil, whatever mineral find on Petop. That is my only reason. That is the only reason I see. Physically speaking, La République du Cameroon hates Anglophones. Let me use that term. They hate the Cameroon citizens. The only reason why they are fighting this war and dying there, it is because of the crude oil. And they are still benefiting from it. Even now that their economic situation is there, they are still getting resources from the crude oil. Thank you.
You've just brought up a point, but I think I would like to get by Mbeseha's reaction before I tell you other sentiments that are coming from different quarters. The crude oil. As we speak, Biya and his children are the richest Africans. Literally,
that's what
right
I said.
Now, Brenda Biya actually has money unthinkable. And Forbes is also fraudulent because they can talk about other people's riches. They can't even say this because there's no justification. And because they've been benefiting from this rich oil well that is in Amazonia. That's on an aside. I want to get the reaction of Mbeseha. He might have another clue. Why do you think Biya is just unwilling to end this war? Because one would believe that it's affecting the economy. The common man is suffering. He will be quick, like he did during the Bakassi Peninsula conflict. And it was after Kofi Annan, Obasanjo, rallying states to see that as a conversation. Why would you think that Biya is just not willing to have the war end? Because he knows what it is to stop the war. But he's using methods that are not working in ways that are strange. And we know part of some of those methods is by thinking that they can corrupt leaders of the Southern Cameroons in the diaspora. Another way is by trying to send children out to go and be killed. So let's try to get into their calculation. What can be their calculation? What do they hope to achieve after many more lives would have been wasted? By Mbeseha.
Well, again, before I go to that, let me go back to this issue again. See, I don't personally believe that every error made in this struggle is caused by France. No, I'm not saying that France is perfect. There are a lot of things that have gone on because of individual miscalculations. And I would just illustrate this. I've given the example of Thabo Mbeki in the Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire was a French-speaking country. Thabo Mbeki, the mediator, was never a Frenchman. But the mistakes he made there in that his mediation effort were not told to him by France. It was just miscalculations. He realized that. I'm not saying that France can be exculpated, no. But the errors that can be avoided. Back to your issue. Why is Yaoundé not prepared to end the war? It is the wrong question. Yaoundé is prepared to end the war on their own terms. It's not that they don't want to end the war. They want to end the war on their own terms. They don't want the war to end the way a normal person would want to end a crisis, by addressing the root causes. No, they want to end the war on their own terms. What was the cause of the war? How did this war begin? It actively started in 2017. But signs have been there. Remember something we talk about CAM, C-A-M. Dr. Nsoh will know about that more than me. Cameroon Anglophone Movement. Come down to SCNC, AAC1, SCNC. And then back up to the consortium. What were these people looking for? CAM, SCNC, AAC1, SCNC, the consortium. They were talking about one thing only, a return to the federation. That's what it was all about, a return to the federation. And if we understand the federation, it simply meant people have to administer their own resources. Yeah, when they say no, and because they said no, they have insisted on that no till today. They said the form of state is non-negotiable. The state must remain as in the form that it is. They cannot negotiate what the form of state will be. And they have kept faith to that stand. Even in their grand national dialogue, the form of state was never to be negotiated, was never even to be discussed, was out of the issue. It could not be discussed. Why? Why are they so much against a federation? And why is their opposition to a federation so popular with the ordinary citizen of Light Republic, who is prepared to send his son, his daughter, their children to go and die in the name of a form of state? This is the only reason. You don't talk to any francophone, anyone from Garoua, from Maroua, from anywhere, they will tell you that a federation is a recipe for secession. Are they against secession? Of course. Is it because they want a united Cameroon? Not necessarily that. They are so reason for being so much against federation by their understanding and by their private understanding, secession is the resources that are there, the natural resources that every Cameroonian, anywhere, living in Garoua, living in Betua, living in the Bolivar, benefits. We supply the money for them. And by their own perception, a federation is the beginning of secession. So if we got this federation, which Ambazino has called the form of state, that would mean that Ambazino will go away with all its resources. The resources there do not only talk about oil, which is being exploited now. They can be summarized in terms of natural resources. What we call Ambazino is very, very rich in natural resources. Last week, we tried to discuss about, for example, the Manfield people not selling their forest. Forest is part of the natural resources. There's more than trees standing in the forest. Most countries around the world don't even cut down the trees. The trees and the animals are part of the resources. And I remember mentioning here that what they are calling forest is just part of what they call the corrupt forest, the corrupt reserve forest. They are not reserving trees. They are reserving precious animals, medicinal plants that have been there for centuries. That's the resources that we have that they want to keep. That's the basis for which they want the world to end on their own terms. They want the world to end even today. That's why we're talking about what do you call it? Don't go to Mboya preaching no mercy. Let no mercy come and let us return to whatever it is. And so they are fight. They want the world to end, I insist, but they want it to end on their own terms. Why are they so frightened? In addition to trying to keep the resources, they are afraid of what any human being, most human beings are afraid of. They have done a lot of wrong. They have wronged Amazonians to a point. They have wronged the world by in fact, disregarding all international agreements, the treaties signed. That they fear that a coming together to discuss the root causes of the problem will expose them, will be exposed to these flagrant violations of their own laws, to these flagrant violations of international treaties that they signed. And like any other human being, let me take Paul behind the leader. He's going to be ashamed. He's going to pee in his pants, standing in the public and finding it so impossible to defend what they have done to the world. Yes, they did all those things. They never believed for a moment that would come to this point. Again, when Paul Biya said in 2 weeks they will crush the rebellion, he was not joking. He thought they could crush it. When the Speaker of the National Assembly described us as 2 cubes of sugar, he understood what he was saying. He knew that he thought that we could melt, and that would be the end of the matter. And so the whole idea of fighting us physically, melting us as 2 cubes of sugar, is to silence us, for us not to complain anymore, so that they could get what they could get. They could get what they are getting, including natural resources. As I said, our forest is money. You don't need to go to Kenya. I went to Kenya not 2 months ago. I went to what we call the safari. The safari is just a bush. But they have dog roads there where you can pay and they will drive you through. You see gorillas, you see the giraffe, you see the elephant, you see lions kept there. And you pay. They are not killing those animals. And so those are natural resources that they want to keep forever. They never believe that we will stand up to their fight. We have stood up to fight. That's why they will spend all what they can. And again, they still remain with their principle, form of state, non-negotiable. Listen to Kamto, who is supposed to be the next president by speculation. What does he say? We have already carved our own history. He goes in details to announce it. The German Cameroon that we inherited shall stand. That's Kamto, the next president of Cameroon. So who shall be the president of Cameroon that will see that we have something to do? Nobody. All of them, those are them who will take power after Paul Biya, who is already a dead man, are going to try to do everything to make sure we are part and parcel of them. To make sure they will dilute even the so-called federation, in the words of Agbombala, so there will not be a federation. It will be a federation wherein they can come to Kumba, they can go to Bamenda, they can go to Ndau and harvest rice without questioning. They can come to Mamfe and cut precious trees without any question. And so that is what it is, by my own understanding. And to understand these basic things about this world, we would have missed a big point. Over to you.
I agree with both of you very well, but there's a side, and there's no doubt, first of all, that this war has been merchandised. That those who are accusing leaders of the Saudi Cameroons movement that they're making money in the diaspora, but you and I know that it is not true. Evidence is there is not even sufficient money that you see people, let's just say a person like Dr. Mungwa. Lots of people like you cannot sacrifice your life because there is no money to be made. So that's just an empty propaganda, a way of turning the people against them. But money is being made in this war. As the war goes on, money is being made. And definitely that money is not made in the diaspora. Because it's a task for the diaspora to sustain our people that are faced with the carnage. Now, there are those who believe, like myself too, that the cabal in Yaoundé, for some reason, is really not willing to end the war because some of them are making a lot of money. When you now find a person like Galat Gerard owning his own armed men, and this is something we'll get into the BBC report. This is something no media is talking about. You have civilians. Moja Moja was not only civilian. Moja Moja in one of his audio revealed that it was a kind of policy enabled even by the Prime Ministry that even some CPDM loyalists now own their own armed men, and having these arms, fueling the arms, costs lots of money. We've seen Atanganji a couple of times trying to mobilize money. So it is alleged that the cabal in Yaoundé is taking this as an opportunity to make a lot of money, either first of all receiving some donations which they are misusing, and they're actually manipulating and taking, so they don't even want the war to end because it's destroying the economy, impoverishing the common man, but making them richer. What do you people think? Maybe you should comment on that very briefly so that we can move into something that's very important this evening.
Paddy, reducing the reason for not ending the war to money, only money, does not take into consideration the history of the southern Cameroons. Why do you think they abolished the federation? Was it because of money? It was because of money, but the oil money, the resources, like Barrister Mbeseha has extended them, the natural resources. The southern Cameroons is rich, both in the air, on land, and below. Paddy, yes, they are making money for when the conflict started. This question of money was not as rampant as when the La Republic of Cameroon started pumping a lot of military equipment, a lot of soldiers, and the authorities now knew that they have found a place to make money. But if we're talking about why the Biya regime, from the day he started this war, why he don't want to end the war, it is because of the natural resources of the southern Cameroon. That's my take. I don't see anything, because if you look at the history of the southern Cameroon, you will find out that between when you had the federation in 1961 and when it was abolished in 1972, that's when most of the discovery of crude, a lot of crude oil in the southern Cameroon took place. I can think of the creeks in Dian, the Malfi Basin. The Malfi Basin on land has a lot of crude oil. In Bakassi, the war they fought in Bakassi was in defense of a rich part of the southern Cameroon, both the oil and the fish. Natural resources.
The both of you are saying the same thing, which I like it, because it's a firm agreement there, and there's something that you agree. They're actually making money, even though that's not the core reason. The real reason is what Mbeseha explaining now. I want us to look at a twist side there, which I'm coming to you by Mbeseha. There's a little bit of twist in that. You know, this class, I describe Biya as an institution. The class in Yaoundé right now really is thinking, because they are putting France in a position where France is doubting who can actually be a successor. So they are trying to make it for France to feel like, okay, we are the only ones that can sustain this and keep this. While they are making their money, they are probably training aspirations, and that's why you have anybody who wants to be a candidate right now, like Camto, who is a professor, will opt to be an illiterate in the expression of the actual problem. Because Camto, when you listen to his historical overview of the Cameroons, you ask yourself, how did this man become a professor? Because not only is the historical account, the trend and chronology very stupid, it is a manipulation that even Ambazonians in primary school, as we speak, cannot be manipulated with Camto's history. So there's a lot. It's like there's an internal wrestle in Yaoundé right now. Those who don't want the war to end because of their petty interest, and who think that they can use this war to dictate who is supposed to be president. So you have Camto is trying to constantly prove to France that, hey, I believe that this is it. You have even the Anglophones, like the Ambe and the others, who want to become presidents. You have all of them, as we speak right now, not even saying the truth about the war, and they're blaming us. So if you look at it critically, everybody's trying to prove that, hey, if I come, I'm even going to do 10 times what BI is doing. So there is some cliche, because if the problem is solved, then why should we now replace? So it's a lot of things in place for us to look at here, which I believe strongly that if BIA was surrounded probably by the right people, maybe they would have applied the right strategy. If these people didn't have personal interest, there would have been some influence from within his ranks that will enable the institutions or the government to take the right decisions and could end the conflict very quickly. I want you to react to this viewpoint briefly so that we can move forward. Barrister Mbeseha, please.
Well, I would think that reasoning from your own anger, we make a lot of mistakes sometimes. Is there what we call the war? Is there what we call the war economy? The war economy is there, but who benefits from the war economy? It's not the state. It's not the fighters.
Yeah.
It's not the
Individual.
the war. There are private people in the thing. This war economy, who are those who can point to now? Choyaba benefits from it. Can Choyaba end the war? No. Atanganji.
Yes.
General, whoever. Those individuals selling arms or frauding on arms sale, the money does not go to the treasury. If the money was going to the treasury, Cameroon state will not be bankrupt. The state is bankrupt because people are stealing this money, they are not getting anything out of it. So the war economy did not start with the Ambazonian war. If you have a war on ending, you, the people, are capable of ending the war, should avoid the war economy. For example, again, we're all Ambazonians. Choyaba claims to be an Ambazonian, but he's doing all this evil to get money. Choyaba and his team. Can we, you and me, control Choyaba to stop him from stopping trucks running from Nigeria and to steal money? Could we stop him from imposing the so-called Tazi color change, where he made a lot of money out of it? We could not. And so it's like any other thing that we talk in this war. If the war must end, the rightful people must be the ones to end. The Choayabas, the Atanganjis, the Diangbutes are not going to be able, they cannot involve the state of Cameroon. They cannot end the war. Again, it is in the interest of Cameroon as a state, because their treasury is empty. With money from in their treasury, they owe to clean the garbage in the streets. They owe to build schools. They owe to dig roads. This money going to Atanganji and whoever is involved in the economy of the war. It's not going to help the government. It doesn't help the government of Cameroon. Again, otherwise they will not be bankrupt. The state of Cameroon is virtually bankrupt.
Actually, so you agree with me that private.
So I was trying to say that because there are two types of economy in war. I remember, let me quote this. Let me just quote this instance for the last time. You see,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, when this American general was sent to Africa. Before he sent to Africa, he said that Traore was stealing money. He was using gold money, the golden money of his country for himself. What I love was the response of Abraham Traore. He said, yes, the gold is not American gold. It is the
Yeah.
gold of their country. And since he's using it
Yeah.
for his defense, what's the problem of General Langley? There's no problem there. And so, again, as far as the economy is concerned, Atanganji, the man we talk about here every day, is not in a position to end this war. But he's in a position to multiply it so I can get something out of it. And to make the case worse,
Yep.
all this, most,
Yep.
99% of this money out of the war
And
economy,
to prove relevant.
put the money in the bank. They stockpile
Yeah.
the money in their homes. And again, money which is not in circulation is not money. What do you do? What do you do with the milliard in their bedroom? A reasonable government would have opened a bank, get that money out as loans, get interest and multiply it. And so again, it's the wrong target. Yaoundé, Mr. Paul Biya is a man capable of ending this war because he's the head of state. Over to you.
So we all have one agreement here that the private contractors really don't want it. When you have President Sako coming to cry every day. So my target for this discussion was to paint a picture which is the right image that should be in the minds of the people. We look at President Sako is always seeking for a solution that will end the war. He's telling them we need this kind of conversation. He's the one who is rushing to Switzerland to ensure that they can do it. He told the Canadian ambassador, listen to me, where you are taking me cannot solve the problem. This is all of a waste of time. So we have agreed on one thing. Cameroon contractors, their ministers, the Bargangele, all of these fraudsters, including some proxies within the Amazonian camp, really don't want this war to end for reasons you have just highlighted. I think we need to move
Yes,
on.
Paddy.
Unless you want to say.
Yes, can I say something here?
Very briefly, please.
Listen. When do we think that Biya stopped governing? Because this war has made, the health situation of Biya has caught this war in the middle. Let me explain that. The people who are making the money are those who are hanging around Biya and now propping Biya up as the man who governs Cameroon. If Biya was governing, if Biya was governing Cameroon the way he started this war, I don't think this war would have gotten to this level. In the interest of the contractors overtook the interest of Cameroon as a result of Biya's inability to govern. Because of his health, because of his incapabilities after that, those who are now governing the country had a reason to continue to fight this war because of the war economy. They are exploiting it. The Ayabachos are exploiting it. Atangaji is exploiting it. The Ngongo, they are exploiting it. The money is getting dry. The second point, let's not forget that we started an economic sabotage on La Republic of Cameroon.
And it's still ongoing.
The blow on Sonora cut down Cameroon's economy to a certain size. The blow on CDC and Pamol that are no longer producing what they were producing before. That's economic sabotage that contributed to the problems of the state, and those who are hanging around there and propping him up, even up to now, trying to get him to run election again, are those contractors who are benefiting from the war. Therefore, it is incumbent on the international community to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
But will they?
Yeah, let's hope. So this takes us directly into where we're going to come. So Cameroon, one of Cameroon's methods, with their unwillingness to end the war in a fair term, like Barrister Mbeseha mentioned, to make sure that they can end the war unfairly, either by the illusion to defeat Amazonia, is media manipulation. And we've seen that in many different forms. Not only is the media afraid to call us Southern Cameroons, they rather call Anglophone Cameroon. We're going to get into that discussion. When was Cameroon, when did we become Anglophones after our independence? How did the term come all about? This is going to lead us to the conversation we're having. Another part that is very important is how media consistently uses words they know. All of you here are lawyers. You know the importance of words. Even when you're writing your thesis, it's important to interpret what they call literature review, because the words will help people to understand your argument. The argument is that we are a people. We're going to be watching a video from BBC and some aspects where Agbobala makes assertions that would say that this is a linguistic war. So a lot of things to put together. Let's look at the first snippet of the BBC documentary that I have considered it was fraudulent, because everything about it was manipulated and wasn't really the truth. Let's just watch it.
It was very difficult. It was very difficult to stay in Kumba. The conflict that is plaguing the country along its linguistic lines can be traced back to colonialism. Under colonial rule, the region that we today mostly call Cameroon was split in two, with two Anglophone regions, North and South, administered by Britain, and a French territory governed from Paris. In 1961, as independence approached for the Cameroonian territories under British rule, Northern Cameroon voted to join Nigeria, while Southern Cameroonians joined Cameroon. The country began as a federation, but in 1972, it became a unitary state. Since then, Anglophones have felt marginalized by the centralized Francophone government. And in late 2016, peaceful protests began against the creeping use of the Francophone legal system in the region's courtrooms.
It is now more than a month that we have been on strike after having notified the government about our dissatisfaction with the erosion of the common law.
I sat down to talk with Barrister Agbonkongo, who was one of the English-speaking lawyers leading the protest at the time. Anger was building at the fact that the government was sending French-educated civil law judges who do not understand English common law to their courts.
We felt that because of the bijural nature, the bilingual nature, the history of this country, where two systems had to coexist, there was a need for lawyers to rise up, to raise their voices against this encroachment into the common law.
Teachers and students will soon join the lawyers in calling for an end to the marginalization of the Anglophone minority. These political demands led to demonstrations and, eventually, protesters launched Operation Ghost Towns. Strikes where for several days each week, shops and institutions closed their doors.
We started by writing to the government, which failed to respond. We called for boycotts of courts. We called for school boycotts. But it was peaceful and civil. At no point in time did we advocate for violence.
But Cameroon's government responded with force to the protest. And violence is what followed. Beatings, intimidations, and mass arrests. A disproportionate and deadly use of violence by the Cameroonian security forces in the words of the African Union's Commission on Human Rights.
I'll take it with you. I'll begin with you, Barrister Fru. First of all, what caught my attention in that first excerpt we have there is the narrative. Anytime I listen to those narratives, because I'm doing research, and you realize that there's a narrative that forces it at every time to force us. I don't think that these international organizations are not aware of the historicity and the legality. But the narrative is carefully calculated at every time to place us as a position where we are seen as rebels trying to break a nation. Even in his record of that history was not accurate. I listened to Michel Biemtong just a few hours before listening to this last Sunday. Michel Biemtong could specifically place the difference between what happened in the northern English Cameroon at the time, or the Cameroon under Britain, and what happened to us, the southern Cameroon. But his narrative was struck. He said they voted to join. When he came to ours, the narrative was twisted. And we expect that even after 8 to 10 years of a war, Britain should have, or the British Broadcasting Corporation should have been able, at least, owing to the fact that Britain was implicated in this story, should be able to tell the people what is happening. The war, when I go to their platform, because of this report, because how do you know the impact of the report? As I do research, I want to know what people that are not Cameroonians or Southern Cameroonians say. And now the war is saying we're fighting a linguistic war. And so this is where I got a little bit offended, because they knew what they wanted to achieve, and they achieved it in their narrative. So I'm worried, Barrister Fru.
When I watched that just now, the first thing that struck me was that those points that the British manipulated were not developed. The narrative cut it off. For example, they didn't tell us that documentary did not say that the Northern Cameroon cut off to join Nigeria, and that Britain had taken the southern the Cameroon, the part of the English part of Cameroon, and cut it into two. The reason is simple. They wanted to make it look like a linguistic matter, because the other part is enjoying peace in Nigeria. Number two, what I didn't like, what I hated about this documentary, the part that you just showed, is the narrative of Agobala. Agobala is such a dishonest person. Why would Agobala talk about at no time there was any violence? He forgot the 22nd of September 2017. He forgot the 1st of October 2017, where La République du Cameroon used gunships and killed more than 100, and according to Honorable Weber, 122 young people, both in the southern zone and the northern zone.
But we realize that the numbers we're close to 400.
There may be more. There may be more. Yes, but I'm talking about his own estimation, which that is all I have to go by. But I know that there were more. And Agobala will sit there and lie that at no time during the time that the lawyers were reacting and the population, they did not, there was no violence. What is he trying to do? The worst thing that can happen to any lawyer is to lie publicly. You forgot, Agobala, you forgot that 6 gendarmes were killed somewhere in Manu, and that is what triggered Biya to declare the war. You forgot that the lawyers did not start reacting till after 1st of October 2017. And you forgot that you were imprisoned. If that's not violence, then what is it? When you were released from prison, the first thing you did was that you went and paid homage to the governor of the Southwest President, Okala Belai. Kneel before him as a prodigal son. I find it, look, this is a fraud on the Amazonian people. The British should know that anybody who did this documentary from the British media should know that that was fraud committed on the Amazonian people. Tell the story as it is. The least you can do is to tell the story as it is. How did the war start? They carefully kept out the idea that Biya descended from Ivory Coast and declared the war at the Semaland on the 30th of November 2017. And Paddy, before 30th of November 2017, before he went to Cote d'Ivoire, I was practicing law in Douala, and I heard that a meeting was held in Yaoundé. And somebody I know very well in the system told me that meeting discussed if they descend on Anglophones, what will be the consequences? Some people said you will fight a war because Anglophones will not take it. A few. But majority said we can subdue them in 2 weeks. That is before he went to Abidjan and then came back and declared the war at the airport. You see, these are things that we cannot document because it's like hearsay. But what I'm trying to say is that this documentary has not even stated the fact that Mr. Biya declared war on the people of the southern Cameroons. And Ogobala will sit there and lie. It's a travesty of a lawyer.
Just to confirm some of the things and to enable this conversation in a way that it should go, is the fact that we are seeing progressive flip-flopping of Agbobala. He's first of all not willing to be on exile. He's not willing to stay in prison. One thing that he really doesn't understand is, if not the pressure that came from the people of the Southern Cameroons, from when he was going to Bamenda with the Kinshasa, if none of the people, if none of the pressure that was mounted, evidently he would have still been in prison. So then when they thought that they could negotiate with him to destroy the consortium, but it failed, and there was an escalation. But Mr. Mbeseha, I want to get your reaction to this.
Well, my reaction is that it's good for us to go back to the drawing board of this segment so as to be sure of what we're talking about. You see, this segment is titled ABC Fraud, a BBC fraud exposed. Is there any fraud by the BBC? Certainly not. That documentary, all the narrators in that documentary, they don't work for the BBC. The documentary simply aired through BBC. So if there was something there that we disagree with, it is not with the BBC. I just like Mr. Nsoh is saying, that's a word matter talking. It is not BBC. They simply aired the documentary. And so if there's no fraud, it is not their fraud. If I had the opportunity, I would simply put it as a misrepresentation. The facts are simply misrepresented. And having said that, only in one sentence, what I will do next is simply to go and correct the misrepresented facts. Because the problem we have, which I've always tried to say, is this: sometimes we spend more time disagreeing with somebody who does not agree with us than putting our own points, which are the correct version, which would be the correct version. So, because I think I've learned a bit from the American political system. When you get an American politician, a Democrat, a Republican, in a press conference, they don't have often an hour. They have about 30 minutes, 25 minutes at most. And then if you ask that guy, if he's a Republican, a question, he would turn to what the Republicans want and explain only that one, because that's what they want you to hear. They're not going to waste their time castigating the Democrats or vice versa. They will say this is the position of Trump. We want to deport people who are illegally here. It doesn't matter whether Biden accepts or not. This is a policy. And so we should focus on these things. What is misrepresented there is what we should be trying to let the world understand. Because when we put it be a BBC fraud, we target the BBC. The BBC is not, to the best of my knowledge, it's not the spokes.
But Mbeseha, let me come. I can cue you. I'll cue you in. You're going to speak. I'm sorry for that. Let me explain the reason why I think it's a BBC fraud, and I can argue that because the BBC has an editorial. I do the news every day. BBC cannot claim that they brought Agbobala. This was not an interview. This is a documentary which has been sponsored by the BBC. And the BBC is liable to the documentary because the documentary was scripted.
Correct.
You get it?
Correct.
Now, if it was random, so the BBC what I'm saying is a legal thing. If BBC thinks that I have caught it a fraud and I am wrong, let them take me to court. I am saying that BBC's documentary is a fraud because BBC could have processed it and choose not to air it because BBC knows the truth. So the BBC documentary is a fraud. I'm happy that you agree with me that there are misrepresentation. And that's why BBC should have, right now, if I'm talking to you, you say something that's a misrepresentation, it's a live show. I can't edit it. It is good for me to claim that it's a misrepresentation. But for BBC to prepare a documentary, publicize the documentary with a flyer, publish it 3 days later on with misrepresentation, it is a legal standing for me to say that BBC has done a fraud. And I would think that they did it intentionally. And that's why Donald Trump calls them fake news. Because they cannot say they don't know truth. I agree with Trump that they are fake news. BBC, CNN, they lie a lot. Kamala Harris is losing election. They are telling us that she's winning. So this is the point. The BBC documentary that carries misrepresentation is a fraud. And I don't know why we opted to air the fraud. Maybe now that we are on air, let us expose the fraud by saying the misrepresentations that people like Agbobala and the reporter Ayon, these are two guys from Bayern, both of them were lying. So let's explain to the world in fact, the documentary is a fraud because of the misrepresentation of Ayon, the journalist, and the misrepresentation of Agbobala that has been put together, edited, produced, sponsored, and published by the BBC. Please, Barrister Mbeseha.
Well, this is the point. If you had allowed me to end.
No, please, you have the chance. Go ahead.
No, but if you allow me to go to the end, maybe you would have said it in a better way. This is my point. What we do here is not in your personal interests, neither is it in mine. And so we have to get a strategy on how we will fight those who disagree with. This is just the fact. BBC misrepresentations, you may call them fraud, but one thing you should also understand is BBC is a news media that is followed worldwide. BBC and you and me, we don't have the same following like BBC. And so if the BBC went out again now in a type of retort to issue a rejoinder, they are going to get more people listening to them than you and me. And you've given a wrong example. The fact that Donald Trump calls them a fake news, it's not the same thing that you would call them fake news. Don't that, as an individual, one, as the President of the United States, two, he has a larger following. He's addressing the world. People are listening to him worldwide. I'm not sure that we can match 1/10 of the viewership of the listening audience.
No, that's I agree with you. Let us talk about the misrepresentation so that the BBC can know the misrepresentation.
Well, you're cutting me short, please.
No, go ahead, please.
Let me finish my segment. And so that's
very soon we'll be 7 o'clock, man. Very soon we'll be 7.
No, go ahead, please.
My point is, and my strong advice is, as much as we disagree with people, with organizations, the way we describe them is also very, very important. Again, BBC is not the voice of the United Kingdom government. It's not CRTV. It's a private organization. Though they operate from London, they might have an interest to protect. But take note, BBC will not take the insults of the British government. And therefore, it is better for us, this is my view, and that's what I've always tried to do, to correct where they go wrong, rightly or wrongly, to correct where they misrepresent intentionally or unintentionally, and put out our own points. This is what is the correct thing. And let me just give an example. If I were the one to put it out there, I said that guy was
just put it. Don't try to correct, or just correct them. Just correct them. It will help. You know what I'm saying is, when I want people like Dr. Fuse,
I was just trying to say that. Well,
I realize that we Amazonians are trying to be so careful that even Americans, when a media says something that's not correct, you have activists or the other media comes out and criticizing that media house. But we're trying to be so, we are being so careful. Slogans every day. Apologies to want to criticize another media house for a mistaken thing.
Now, you're making it personal, and this is what I was saying. We would have corrected that version, we would have corrected that misinterpretation by simply saying that what they have said is wrong. What happened was the UN General Assembly entrusted a territory to the UK to administer. They administered it wrongly by dividing them into two. In fact, by creating their own two trust territories called one called Northern Cameroon and one called Southern Cameroon. So the issue of even asking people to vote and join Nigeria or vote and join Cameroon was wrong. It's a misrepresentation of the facts as they are. It's a misrepresentation of the law. That way, people who are listening to us will already understand what we are disagreeing with immediately, factually and legally. They will proceed. I'm not a boot leaker, but I'm a strategic leaker. If I want to leak your boots, I will strategically leak it where I will score my goal. So getting a little bit emotional and quarreling with me or with somebody else is not the solution. We're here to see what strategy we can use, to see how we can correct the wrongs that have been done to us in the right way that we'll get what we want to get. Again, mounting a fight with BBC, which BBC is rightly or wrongly using our own citizens, Agwambala and those people narrating there, to tell the same story that you and me are trying to tell. It's the wrong strategy. We could say, Agwambala said this is wrong. The other narrator said this is right or it's wrong. And give the reason why they are saying the right or wrong thing. And say why Agwambala is even an agent of Yawande, that's okay. But Agwambala's fault or whoever doesn't become the responsibility of BBC. Again, BBC aired the documentary, they didn't produce it. Yes, again, it will be strategic in our analysis.
No. BBC produced the documentary. Mbeseha, I want to make a correction there. The documentary.
Okay, let's move on. I made my point. We don't need to debate.
I'd like us to move on. So this is an important thing so that people don't carry the misconception. This is not a random street interview done by BBC. A documentary, before it is done, a script is written by an editor-in-chief that processes it and a field reporter is gone. I did documentary in December where we sent journalists on the ground in the refugee camp to interview people. Before they went there, we knew what we wanted to go and get. We just had facts. BBC had this, right? This is a sensitive issue. A media house have a responsibility of the information that they give out, because, and by law, is that we are not a nation that can sue them for fraud yet. But a media house has a responsibility, because the information they give can either bring a war or it can bring peace. This documentary by BBC should have been edited, and these people should have been told that before the people that they call Anglophones got offended, they had taken Sam Sawyer and beheaded him in front of his wife. They went to Kendem village in 2017, took a baby and fried in palm oil.
And put in oil.
But the story was strategic, whereby a lone girl who lost the husband, they took that girl and made the girl the centerpiece of that documentary. I'm not a fool when I watch the subliminal effect of that documentary. I listened to it. The documentary was strategic enough to paint the struggle that the people of Amazonia are killing their own people. And BBC watched this documentary after they produced it and aired it. So it is a fraud. Now let us expose the fraud by educating people that this information given by BBC is not true. If BBC is offended, let them sue us. We are saying that their documentary is a fraud.
I agree.
Okay, please. Yeah, but Fru, you wanted to make a contribution.
They carefully left out the declaration of war, which was what sparked this war. They left that out. Why? To benefit, so that the regime can benefit. They left out the fact that it was not it was a war declared on the people of the southern Cameroons by La République du Cameroun. It had nothing to do with language. And all the lies told by the narrator, who happens to be, I'm now hearing that he's a Mafe man, just like Agwabala. Agwabala will sit there and lie, and he cannot reflect and think that before the lawyers, before I was there, before we started reacting, 22nd of September has come and gone, where people were killed. 1st October has come and gone. What are we talking about? That there was no violence throughout when the lawyers and the teachers were reacting? My God. Arrest.
There's another excerpt of this video I want us to react, because Mbeseha likes us to get to the fact. Let's go to an excerpt in the video so that we react to some of the
Paddy, wait. You are cutting me short all the time. You
go ahead,
to do things because we are reacting to what you have not even put hold there. I've not heard the whole story. But again, when we are here, my advice, and my very strong advice, is the way we float out words is important. And you have said 2, 3, 4 times, suing somebody. And let me say it here emphatically. There is no way, there's no court based on what you have produced there, just that segment. You cannot sue BBC, even so-called Agwambala, on fraud. Why? Take it from me or don't take it. Because fraud is a crime. You must prove it beyond reasonable doubt. But you can succeed in a court if you sue them on misrepresentation, even misrepresentation, intentional misrepresentations.
Because what is intentional misrepresentation? It's fraud.
No, the point is gotten. Let me interpret the things that I said.
Let me I didn't talk. Why don't you let me finish my point?
Okay, finish.
I don't intervene. It's not fraud. It's what we call misrepresentation, and there's what we call negligent misrepresentation. It's totally different from fraud. Fraud is a crime which has been proven beyond reasonable doubt. If Mr. Nsoh did not know this, go and do your work again. You have not even finished the whole segment.
What are you talking about? Are you challenging my ability?
Are
you challenging me?
I'm challenging your legal.
That's understood.
It's not fair between you and me.
But you look at. Have you heard what he has just said about me?
No, that's not it. No. By Fru, that's understood, right?
Again, if you have to bring me here.
I mean, how can he say that? How can he say that about me?
It's not a fight between you and me, sir. It's not a fight between you
and me. It's personal. You made it personal now.
You said it was fraud. I simply quoted you. You said it was fraud.
I am saying intentional misrepresentation. Intentional misrepresentation could be fraud depending upon the fact. Intentional misrepresentation could be fraud depending upon the facts.
You didn't say intentional.
That's what I'm telling you. Intentional misrepresentation is fraud sometimes.
But anyway, Paddy, if you want to answer this program, give me the opportunity to say what I want to say.
But I see what you have to say here.
Listen to me. When Mr. Nsoh talks, I don't intervene. I stay quiet.
Yeah, we have been talking now for over 1 hour. I have not said anything.
Yeah,
but if you say that I should go and learn, I should go and learn. You ask me to go and learn at this age.
Well, my friend,
that's personal.
It's not personal. I simply quoted you. You said this thing was fraudulent. Quoting Mr. Nsoh, you said it was fraudulent. There's nothing.
No. I said intentional listen to me. I said intentional misrepresentation can be fraud.
Well, let me remember a point. The bottom line is, Paddy, we shall plead with you. If you want me to come to these programs next time, make sure when you give me the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes, for 3 minutes, let me speak. When any of you speaks, or when I speak,
go ahead and give the point.
I don't intervene in their contributions.
Yes, that's true. By Mbeseha, give your point. Make your point.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, it should not be a quarrel between you and me. Ambassador is not me. It's not you.
No, that's true. That's what I'm saying. That make your point so that we can get the point you're making.
I don't see this. No, listen. I don't see this hyper. That when I take my own 3 minutes, you say no, time is too short. The program was so close. That is disrespectful of me. When it's over 10 minutes,
Mbeseha, make your point.
Let me be a little bit cautious. I'm making the point not to Paddy. I'm making this point to the world that is following us. I'm not making the point.
Yes, that's why I'm giving you the opportunity to now make the point.
So I've made the point. Like it or not, that's my stand.
Okay. That intentional we could easily take it that it was intentional misrepresentation, which I agree with you that BBC made an intentional misrepresentation of the facts of the war, which has offended a lot of Amazonians. And you are cautioning us that we should be careful with the language, the way we use them. And I think I'm trying to be very cautious of it. Sometimes when I watch debates, I sit sometimes just to learn. I watch Piers Morgan. I watch Dr. Fields. I watch NBC, Fox, and BBC, and CNN. And when I look at it, left, the right, the different angles of the argument, I actually see people on media calling intentional misrepresentation fraud. They call it that it was fraud. I might give a lot of examples to that. So I might be wrong with the word, but the truth is that BBC intentionally misrepresented the facts of this war, and that's unfortunate. So for us to move forward, there's another excerpt I want us to watch so that we can make a comment on it.
My hometown. The government of our country, they don't have a listening ear to those who are raising issues that are burning in their hearts. Up to this moment we're talking, our head of state has not yet made a statement. He rather sent a truck of military forces to go and be rough handling peaceful demonstrators. They are preparing for war and not for peace.
Yeah, I think I love this except that this person brought. Mr. Fru, I don't know where you've gone to. There's another except that this person brought there. And there's a follow-up to it that spine it. And that is what got my attention, because after such a thing like this, I expected Ayon to have commented that the government actually provoked the war. But this was what Ayon did as a follow-up. Let's watch.
No school. No school for study Cameroon.
For years now, the separatists have tried to enforce a ban on education, which is viewed by them as a mouthpiece for government propaganda.
No school no open.
In October 2020, a school in my hometown was attacked. Unidentified men, armed with guns and machetes, killed at least 7 children. No one claimed responsibility for the atrocity, but the government blamed the separatists. The attack was so shocking that it sparked outrage internationally, not just here in Cameroon.
So, following after this, when we left there, a civilian was interviewed in this documentary. So that's the strategy of media. I can be saying something and I pick somebody that says something nice, but then I do an analysis that is strategically to water down what the person has said, but to support my narrative. So this is another excerpt that the same Ayon is going to bring on, and that Agbobala will support, that I think we should take into consideration so we can get a conclusion. Let's follow.
Also for our country, our dream of peace feels more distant than ever.
Today, 29th of January 2024. We don't come yet.
The forces terrorizing the population, many funded through the Cameroonian diaspora, have many names. Some call them rebels, others terrorists, or simply Amber Boys. There are various groups, some more organized than others, and power struggles have become common between them. But what connects them all is that their actions have become increasingly brutal. This video was filmed in October 2023 in a town called Guzan. Widely shared on social media, it shows separatists mercilessly killing 2 unarmed men who were accused of collaborating with the Cameroonian government.
So you see the strategy of the news, of the report. So after Ayon brought a civilian actually talking about the way the government is approaching the situation, he went further to accuse the Amazonian fighters. And now you listen to his story there. Ayon, these people are not ignorant of the separation, which you understand that whatever Cho Ayaba is doing, they blame it all on us. But at least for us to have been fair, for him to have shown Cho Ayaba killing people in Guzan, or claiming that insecurity is because of the Amber fighters, like the way they showed it there, we expected him to have shown images of the women that were being tortured by the Cameroon army, because these images are available. We wonder why BBC would never or would not have shown the early stages of the war, because they went to the genesis of it. For anybody to be fair with the genesis, they should be able to show how a cripple was picked up and what ISIS is doing. Cameroon cut the man's head in front of the camera, and BBC wouldn't show those images. When we show them, they're going to block us that it is graphic, high graphic. So there was a manipulation in this, which I really want us now to focus on this manipulative documentary, this misrepresented documentary, and point out some of the narratives that we thought were not correct. I'll give the mic back to you, Mr. Mbeseha.
Okay, let me just go to what I think was wrong there and what we should have done. He says, in that documentary, that for years, separatists have imposed a ban on schools. That's the wrong narrative. We simply say, no, the separatists never imposed any ban on schools. And then we would say that our policy on education is people should go to school if they want to go. But above all, if the schools have been closed, they were closed by the government. Why? The government has transferred all the teachers from those schools themselves by government order and removed teachers. Schools don't exist in isolation, they exist with teachers. So the narrative that separatists, whatever thing you call it, have imposed a ban on schools is just wrong. Government transferred the teachers away. As a policy, we did not close any school. The public would, our followers would listen that this is our policy. We didn't close the school. Government closed the school directly and indirectly by moving teachers out of the schools. That's what you should say. Then come to what he's showing there in Batibo, Gozan Market. That's a fact. It happened. They call it separatists. I would say no. No separatist people shot people out there. The guy who did that thing, the guys who did it openly and admitted it, were the ADF. They are not part of the restoration force. They are not part of separatists fighting for independence. They are an armed group affiliated to the government. Our listeners will follow that one and know that we're not responsible. Then by using what they have said wrong to put our policy and correct their errors. That's just what it is. Those two segments are just particularly wrong. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, they are wrong. We have said that they are wrong. They will put our positions and clarify what happened. In the case of Batibo, what happened there, which is openly admitted on the record, is that the AGOFC, people call it ADF, did it, they filmed it. The ADF, as according to us, and by every reasonable standard, are not part of the restoration forces. They are satellite forces created by Yaoundé to use them to paint the revolution black. And then the other side said that funded by diaspora, whatever they call it there. We're not funding the revolution, we're not funding the war there. The people are fighting in self-defense. We're not using tons of money to send to them to fund it. No? They're doing it sometimes with their bare hands or with whatever weapons they capture from the enemy. That's how we dispel those three wrongly narrated versions of the struggle. Rather than quarreling with them, I will correct it and say this, what you have said, it is wrong. This is the correct position. That's what I meant by spending more time putting our own position publicly than disagreeing with them without putting our own positions. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Barrister Fru. There's a last part of the video I want us to watch. That there's something Agbobala said that is quite important for us to talk about. But before that, I'd like to get your comment with some of these excerpts that we've just watched.
Well, Paddy, everything that you have shown from that documentary, there is nothing there about what La République du Cameroon has done to our people. There's nothing. They have not shown the atrocities that La République du Cameroon has done to our people. That's fraudulent manipulation of facts. You don't want me to use fraud? If you do a presentation, a misrepresentation of facts, knowing how that will affect the people, the interested parties, it is a crime. It's a felony. Because I cannot understand that you do a documentary on the war and you only expose what the one party is doing and say nothing about the other party. I don't want to get into this controversy. Very soon they will tell me to go back to law school.
There is something here. There's something Agbobala said here that is very terrible. And I don't know why, because this is not the first time I've watched him done that. He has done that in many different interviews. I've watched him. He has done that a couple of times. I've watched him on there's a channel in South Africa. I watched him there at once. Somebody's playing back while we're watching there. Can you try not to play so that we don't get an info? Somebody's playing something. Are you watching with your phone, please? The sound is playing here, please.
So, no, not me.
I watched on a channel in South Africa. He said exactly the same thing he's going to say here. We're going to watch it. I watched him many times in Cameroon media. He has said this. And Agbobala is highly respected. We must understand that internationally as a human rights lawyer. He's also conscious of the impact of his words, because when they come to consult a human rights lawyer like Agbobala, and he's bringing some narratives like this, it becomes very challenging. Let's listen to this. And BBC will air this. When you listen to it, BBC aired it and did not balance it. Because if I am doing this and I get the interview of Agbobala, I can bring a balanced narrative which will have sufficient content. BBC intentionally left it out. Let's watch it.
It's hard for me to make sense of this kind of horrific brutality carried out by my own countrymen. Barrister Bonkongo.
Listen to what Ayong said. I'm in a platform, I've sent him messages on it. Listen to what Ayong said. Ayong did not make this kind of statement by Cameroon government at no instant in that documentary. So Ayong, shamelessly towards the end of that documentary, he said, it is hard for me to believe that this is what will happen to my own people by my own countrymen. Now he flashes Agbobala, because Agbobala, whether I would like it or not, is a political asset. Agbobala has a political capital in Cameroon's political construct, and his words are valuable. But listen to what Ayong said. Listen to what Agbobala was saying.
In August 2017 was freed after 8 months in prison. Tells me how perceptions of the separatists have changed since the beginning of the conflict.
There was a time, in my estimation, where most people felt that they needed security, they would go to the separatists. But over the last 2 years, I don't think any reasonable person will think that the separatists will be the ones who protect them. Some of the Anglophones have become so radicalized and a bit cut off from reality in a way that it's separation of nothing. So everybody should die for us to have independence. And I ask the question, if everybody dies and you have independence, who are you going to govern? There was a time when we, the Anglophones, clamoring for change at the moral high ground, wherein atrocities was committed by one party, the state. But after a while, both the separatists and the government, they've committed heinous crimes,
I wonder if I have to just counter what Agbobala said there. I want to ask myself, did Agbobala watch 1st October? Because this is Cameroon. I thought it's a Cameroon media one. Because Cameroon, the media houses like BBC, they take money from Cameroon government. That's a fact. We know that the media lives on government sponsoring them. So whoever is that editor has been paid. It doesn't matter if it is BBC, they take money. That is the politics. So you see the strategy, they are trying to say that, because that's what civilian loyalists are saying, that the Cameroon government is actually protecting them, and they cannot be protected from the Ambazonian fighters. And even the people watching at the home front, some of them are even believing this, to the extent where they betray their own blood. And then exposing. Commander Willie was complaining last week of something that happened. What happened is, in a community where an enabler was being protected, before they know it, the military came and killed all the Ambazonian fighters. It just happened 2 weeks ago, because an informant, who is a civilian, would tell the colonial forces that the Ambazonian fighters are here, and before they know it, their communities are exposed. So you have listened to that, Barrister Mbeseha. What do you have to say? I think that's the last excerpt that we have to conclude on for tonight.
Again, what I would say is in general terms, we all agree that those news media, those outlets are not going to invite you or me on their programs. Just like in Cameroon, the CRTV will never invite you to their program. They invite selected guests of their choice. And when their selected guests go there, they give the narrative that they want them to give. We are at that stage trying to correct the wrong they have done, trying to put the correct information to counter what they have given out. They have already spread that information out. It's already gone out. And so when we have the opportunity to correct the faults they have done, to correct the errors they have done deliberately or inadvertently, we emphasize on what is right. Nobody among us sitting here can pretend that Agbombala is one of us. We cannot pretend that he's one of us. But they will not invite you. They will invite him. Because first he's in Cameroon. Secondly, he holds a record of saying that he's a human rights advocate. So for that reason, they will invite him. And then he goes there, he will tell the story his own way. If he wanted to tell the story of Ambazonia, he will tell it with the vision of a federation that he stands for. And so, Agbombala, a young whoever is there, they are just two very few, because there are many others who are going out. So again, my emphasis is, once we have this opportunity to challenge what our detractors say, we take that opportunity to say the right thing. Because we're not even sure that what we're saying now is going to go back to those who watched that documentary 5 years, 6 months, 2 weeks ago. And so that's what it is. I disagree with Agbombala. That is sure. But do I need to sit here disagreeing with him? No. I need to sit here putting out the right version of the story. What is the right version that supports our goal of total independence? That's what I put out there. So whoever follows us will know, and they have had the opportunity to follow them, will know that this is what we stand for. This is what we're fighting for. That's my point, and I have no more to say. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I think I like the way. I'm sorry for that that baby there. I know that you are surely doing omogo now. As a grandfather, you're doing omogo. So the babies won't allow you speak, which is okay. Agbombala is the one provoking us this evening by telling the world that where we are, Barrister Fru, Agbombala is saying that our Amazonian fighters, I don't know if they're aware that Talk and Do is protected by the community in Bui. No matter every attempt, I don't know if they're aware that the people that betray these boys are the ones that they plant. I don't know if they're aware that we have communities that are protected by the same fighters they want to claim for killing the people. We have videos here, images of these fighters dancing with communities, dancing and shaking with communities. Agbombala wants the world to feel that we have been so radicalized to the point where we now kill our own people. Agbombala is not humble enough to tell the world that at Tanganji, that even if you are called an Anglophone, but you take money from a Tanganji to kill an Anglophone, you are no longer a Southern Cameroonian fighter. You are already under Cameroon. And I can argue that 98% of every person killing civilian on the ground is Cameroon. Because no Ambazonian fighter kills a Cameroonian, an Ambazonian. That's a fact. The ones that have been corrupted
except ADF. Except ADF.
Yes, it's not an Ambazonian. Maybe ADF working with a B we cannot categorize them under ourselves. Like Mbeseha just said that. Mbeseha just said that we cannot say that Agbombala is a part of us. But he is proposing himself as part of us, then giving the misrepresentation there, so that he will say Go ahead, please.
Let me ask a rhetorical question. Who protects Agbombala in Boya? The state of Cameroon? Because he claims that for the last 2 years, you cannot go to the separatists for separation, and that the separatists are killing everybody, and you're looking for independence. Who will you govern? Meaning that for the last 2 years, all the killings have been attributed to the Ambazonian State Army instead of La République du Cameroun. I think that, Paddy, I'm suggesting that if you have a full video of this documentary, BBC documentary, preserve it. Unless the status of limitation runs out, we will sue BBC. I don't care whether, like Barrister Mbeseha said, that they are so popular, like CNN, they don't have a following. They have a big following, and so on. And a network that operates a fraud on the people is liable just like any other person. And a man who has been defrauded or who has been defamed by a network has a right to sue that network, no matter how big that network is, no matter how many followers they have. So keep this video, because we will revisit it. If possible, sue BBC civilly and claim some money from BBC, because this documentary, you cannot begin to quantify the harm that it has caused to this struggle, because it is so one-sided that it puts us in a situation of defense, that, oh, we are the ones killing our people. Oh, for the last like Abgobala insinuates, for the last 2 years we have been killing our people, and we are pretending to fight for independence, and whom shall we govern? Can you imagine a lawyer saying that? A lawyer living in Boya and practicing common law, and also calling himself a human rights whatever. People claim that he is a respected human right that is respected around the world. When I watch that human rights expose in Geneva, I didn't hear about Abogwala's organization, but the prominent human rights people that made that report were there. If it's so popular, what has he really done that will bring this whole struggle, this war rather, into focus, and do a balanced reporting as a human rights person on and put it out there? All what I've read about him is extracts here, extracts there. I don't know how popular he is. I don't know how rich he is, but he lives in Boya, and he claims that he's not protected by the separatists. Who then protects him? Who protects him? Well, I rest my case.
What Agbobala is actually saying there is that his protection is coming from the Cameroon army. How long does he even live?
That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. So, because how long does he even live in Boya? Most of the time he's in Douala, in Yaoundé, and he just keeps into Boya. He knows that he cannot freely move about because of that dishonesty, but he knows that the Cameroon government is protecting him, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. In fact, we've had a very educative show. Is that towards the end, the truth is that when it comes to political debate, it's always going to be heated. So for those who are watching us, it's just normal. There are those debate means that somebody's using a language that is not correct, and the other person is using the right one, and then they're having conflict. That's one aspect about debate. But this has been important because it's also sometimes very important for the world to feel our emotions the way we feel, because they just say anything, anybody does anything. When you watch, even when they are talking at their own televisions in the Cameroons, they all no apology when they want to accuse us. We have seen in front of their TV politicians like Cabral Libi are asking the government to come and impose us by killing us all, and that's the person that wants to be a president. So I want to thank you,
One last thing.
gentlemen, for
One last thing. One last thing. I will not defend a network, no matter what, when it does this kind of reporting about our struggle.
yeah. So I want to thank you people for coming. We don't need to feel any bad about it. It was necessary, and I think we were all correct in everything we were saying. It was about semantics. I just did some research now while we're even talking online. I realized that it's about the choice of what, and I think Mbeseha is correct that to some extent our presentation also is important, but our emotion is also very important, because that's what helps us to continuously be who we are and fighting the way we are fighting. We'll make mistakes along the way. We'll also attain some successes along the way. Thank you for doing this. This is the war that you people are fighting here. I can imagine what's happening in the camps with the boys. Sometimes they fight, but at the end of the day, soldiers will fight, and then they will pick up their weapons together, and they will make sure that after picking up their weapons, they gun the enemy. Truth be told, BBC, it is shameful that your editorial board, or whatever you call it, you have the logistics, you have the journalists, you can vet information, you will take your time. After 8 years, when the people of Southern Cameroons have lost so many have died, you will paraphrase. I don't know if you paraphrase Agbabala, whatever he said there, he had enough time to make much better sentences. He's an educated man. I don't know when he stopped calling us Southern Cameroonians and started calling us Anglophones. When he was projecting himself as a leader for the people of the Southern Cameroons, he went on Equinox a couple of times and called us Southern Cameroonians. But because he knows that the word Southern Cameroons is a legal term and the word Anglophone is a fraud, he will not use the word Southern Cameroons again, so as to enable the agenda of the oppressor. Agbabala is a shame. It's a shame that you did that. It's unfortunate that you would do that on a bigger platform. That's a platform that God has generously given to you, and you've taken it to betray your own people. Misrepresentation by legal diction, by law. Once you intentionally misrepresent, Tarh King argues that it is fraud. If BBC thinks that I'm wrong, I will take responsibility. Let BBC sue Tarh King to court. I think the BBC documentary was fraudulent. And that fraud most probably has been sponsored by the cabal in Yaoundé. It was a fraud. There is no better way to express it. Fraud. And what's the intention of the fraud? To help Cameroon oppress the people of Southern Cameroons. It's a fraud. I watch news almost every day. Every day, not almost every day. At least 4 times a day. When I finish meditation in the morning, I watch news. I watch all the big channels you can think about, and I see arguments. Go and watch during elections. Anybody is doubting me? Go now to Piers Morgan's and watch debates. What we have done here is a preamble. There is no person that has used the word fraud more than Piers Morgan when he's describing BBC or when he's describing CNN. Go and watch. So BBC documentary was a fraud. I've sent that message to Ayong. That's a shame for him. He didn't even respond to me because it's a shame that he will do a fraud against his own people. He knows well that if he gave a balanced report, he will not be safe from Cameroon. So he's protected by Cameroon. It's unfortunate. Thank you, dear televiewers, for tuning in this Saturday. We are very excited that you took the time to join us. We're calling on all those who are ABC patrons and club members and donors that at this given moment ABC would need you more. If you want us to continuously debunk the things we're doing, there's no media in Ambazonia that has tackled this situation like this. First of all, because either some of them are not knowledgeable enough to do it, or they are just working for the enemy, not working for Ambazonia. So we're fighting a serious media war. Truth be told, BBC has the platform that we don't. But we need to keep fighting. And one way for the fight to continue is through your generosity. You can't stop now. It's too late to consider that you would have to stop. It would be a very big mistake. It's a time for you to double, quadruple, and triple your efforts. If you were given $50, maybe you need to triple it. I know there's the information I don't want to give public now, but I know what I'm saying. You have to do it because we have to be even more aggressive. I'm aware that conductitis will come here to crop some of the things I'm saying now to think that he wants to file a case against me. I'm very much aware of that. I'm asking BBC to file a case against me that I have accused them of fraud. That they have committed a fraud against the people of Southern Cameroons with that documentary. Let's handle it in court. It's a fraud. Thank you for tuning in. See you next Saturday. I'll leave you with this interesting video.
Challenges in Cameroon that have been going on now for some time, including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war. So we've been trying to talk to President Biya about this thing, to say as the African Forum, that's a former heads of state of Africa, to talk to President Biya to say we are ready to assist you, to work with you to solve this conflict. And we haven't gone very far because he's not been very keen to be assisted to address these challenges. So I then talked to, as the Africa Forum were doing this thing, I talked to the Commission of the African Union to say to them, but colleagues, what are you doing about this conflict in Cameroon? So one of the commissioners then tells me that we discussed the matter as a commission and decided that one of us should visit Cameroon to engage the president and everybody to see that what can we do as a union. And she said to me that, and indeed our colleague went. And I was sitting here in Addis Ababa watching the news. And in the news, it showed my colleague arriving in Yaoundé and walked down a red carpet. And she says, you know, President, when I saw my colleague walking down that red carpet, I knew that the mission had failed. So I say, no, this is a puzzling statement to make. He says, it's because the way they arranged that reception was to drive the notion into the head of my colleague that you are a very important person. So you are received with great grandeur. So in the end, it's the visit itself which becomes the objective, not its outcome. So I knew that my colleague would be so happy that he was received so well, and the red carpet and the champagne, this and that and the other. The mission would die. It's a crude reflection of the death of the Pan-Africanist objective. You can't sit there as a full-time functionary of the African Union and you go there to solve a very serious conflict among the Cameroonian people, but you don't carry it out because all that you do, that happens, that satisfies you. is that I was given all the necessary protocol and the due and so on. So now I'm a big person. It means there's something that has disappeared in terms of our consciousness and so on.
Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia. From the azure embrace of the Atlantic reflecting from the Ambas Bay, the iconic Fako Mountain ascends with a silent, stoic grace, carving a silhouette against the sky. This towering sentinel is more than a geographical marvel. It is the heart of southern Cameroons, the stoic guardian of Ambazonia, a symbol steadfast as the unyielding spirit manifests in the unity of the land's 13th counties. Encircling this earthen spire, a dove of peace edges its arc, untouched and serene. As it soars with wings unfurled, it casts shadows upon the land, each feather a brushstroke of tranquility. Against the canvas of the heavens, 13 stars glimmer, a celestial acknowledgement of each county's shared dreams and harmonious virtues. The dove, in its eternal flight, is not merely a bird, but an embodiment of the collective longing for a peaceful existence under a shared identity. Beneath the mountain top, firmly grounded in the richness of the earth, twin elephant tusks rise as natural monuments. Their arcs, regal and commanding, capture the noble essence of the land spirit animals. This emblem, this seal of Ambazonia, is no mere insignia. It is the beacon that illuminates the path to shared prosperity. It is an oasis of unity in a world patched by discord, a visual whisper of a nation's promise, echoing across generations. Every curve, every symbol within the emblem tells the story of southern Cameroons, an epic scripted by the enduring strength and unity of its communities. Each page imbued with the hopes and enduring spirit of its people. Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia.